This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by $1 Genre. Hi everyone, it's AJ just here at the top of the show to remind you all of a project I've been doing for the last half a year called $1 Genre, where every month I make a short film based on a genre that is suggested and voted on by patrons of $1 Genre over at patreon.com/$1 Genre. And I just thought I'd put a little reminder at the top of this episode that you can be involved in this as well. In fact, by the time this episode goes live, there is a genre poll over on $1 Genre's Patreon right now. We've made 5 short films so far. I'm in the middle of making the 6th one. The genres have been heist, cosmic horror, fast food training video, dark fantasy, found footage, and this month I'm making a tween sitcom. So the possibilities truly are endless, and if you want to support me and my journey with this, then you can do so for as little as $1 over at $1 Genre Patreon, patreon.com/$1 Genre, where you can also sign up to a $5 tier where you can get extra podcast and director's commentary and that sort of thing. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage people, if they want to support and if they like the project, then it is a massive help to head on over to patreon.com/$1 Genre, donate $1 a month, and you too can make me make whatever you want me to make. Let's get to the episode.
Pitiful clip.
Thank you. Are you talking to me or are you talking about yourself?
Hello.
Hey, welcome everybody. In true Harry Potter fashion, Richard on the Skype call, on the Zoom call, can testify that he just saw a giant spider slowly drift past my face and pop filter and down below my computer desk.
It was very very Chamber of Secrets of you.
Thank you. Well, it wasn't, thank the spider wherever she may be, because it wasn't me. Or he.
This is
or them.
Well, I mean, just them would have been just fine either way.
Yeah, that's true.
Either way, because there's only 2 ways it can be. No,
we're kidding.
We're kidding.
Terrible episode to make that joke.
Yeah, during Pride Month. This is during Pride Month still.
Did you think about the fact that, we didn't, when we initially saw we were doing Harry Potter on the Patreon, because the patrons voted for it, then later on we decided to split it up into a 2-part episode, something we've almost never done, unless you count Back to the Future, and then also do Fantastic Beasts as a 2nd episode. Did you consider that this means we are literally spending Pride Month doing Harry Potter? Maybe the least queer-friendly creator of a franchise. Well, actually, that's probably not true.
Yeah, that's probably not true,
But the most publicized controversy of our generation, and we're spending it doing the series over Pride Month. Something I would love to reiterate: 1, we didn't choose to do it. You guys paid and voted for it. And 2, it bears repeating: trans women are women, trans men are men. Fuck J.K. Rowling. We talked all about this on part 1.
Yeah. If you want our thoughts
Harry
on
Potter.
J.K. Rowling and a rundown of why we feel that way, have a wee listen back to the first episode. You should just go back and listen to the first episode anyway. I mean, unless you're a big fan of Harry Potter years 5 to 7, movies 5 to 8, and you're just jumping on here, you're probably, if you want to hear us actually talk positively, I imagine we're going to be talking less positively about the franchise this week than we did last week, where we were I think people said it was good that we still allowed ourselves to have fun with these movies in spite of everything that we said at the start, and we're saying at the start of this episode too. But while we're here, before we get into the films, I do have a couple of corrections I want to make from last week. One, I referred to Kingsley Shacklebolt as a student of Hogwarts. I simply remembered there was a character named Kingsley Shacklebolt, assumed he was a student. Half remembering something I read on the internet. I didn't even remember the character from the films. He's not the one black student. The one black student at Hogwarts is named Dean Thomas, and
He's the one black member of the Order of the Phoenix, though.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
it's still emphasizing the
But I just said, I said
inherent
student.
racism.
I just vaguely remembered the one name. And also, I logged back into my wizardingworld.com, formerly known as pottermore.com, but we'll get to that later, account, and discovered my Patronus is a mole, in fact. And
Okay.
I actually, whenever I logged in there, I was sorted into Ravenclaw.
Wow.
So, and also if you're interested for the trio of defining traits about me, my wand is sycamore wood with a dragon heartstring core. It's 12 inches and unyielding flexibility.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear. My sincerest apologies last week, where I referred to myself as a Slytherin, and I can't remember what I said my Patronus
I've
was.
always described you as having unyielding flexibility.
I don't. I dislocated my knee because of how inflexible I am.
That's also an update from the last episode.
Yeah. Any big updates from you?
I didn't get COVID.
Well,
My flatmate got COVID, and I didn't. None of us got it. I'm invincible. Invincible.
Incredible stuff.
That's what I've gleaned from this past week, of watching Harry Potter movies alone in my room because I didn't want to get COVID and succeeding.
In your cupboard above the stairs.
So yeah, what we last left our heroes, and by that I mean us, talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire,
about having no risk of COVID and having both our knees intact, and now look at us.
Yeah, I let loose on the Goblet of Fire. Talked about how silly I thought it was,
hilariously so.
Thank you so much.
So much so that we actually had a podvid made of it.
Check out our TikTok, Cult Popture TikTok. You can find some clips from the podcast. And yeah, look, there was another, if I can make a correction, actually, Richard, I said that Harry Potter is the longest franchise in which they kind of sort of just get better as they go along. And I no longer think that. But I would say you're just being
pedantic,
obtuse to call any of these like terrible movies. I think.
Yeah, I think the ranking segment's going to be very interesting.
It's gonna be interesting, and also
not that the ranking segment is ever really that interesting,
but like I think when it comes to, and we're talking about ranking the franchises, but ranking the films as a whole as well, I actually find quite difficult to do because I think the direction of Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets is much better than the direction of Half-Blood Prince, for example. But I'm probably gonna put Half-Blood Prince above it because the story's better and the acting's better, and so the combination of acting, writing, and direction, I think is probably at its peak in Prisoner of Azkaban, and then going forward, you take one of those things out of the equation and end up with something less than perfect each time. I mean, the last 4 times it's the same thing. It's less than perfect, but
So the films we're talking about today are Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which came out in 2007, and then not 1 but 2 years later, we had Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince in 2009. And then Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 in 2010 and 2011, respectively. All 4 films were directed by David Yates, which makes this kind of like it actually sort of justifies the splitting point in a way as well. Like they're very notably different, I think. The series feels like it's comfortably split into 2, not just in the direction of David Yates, that the final 4 feel like one sort of thing. But I find watching them this week that the first 4 are movies, and then these are a TV show. Like,
right.
Each of the first 4 movies is very cinematic. They're all about something. They revolve around something, and the last 4 are just like, I mean, I would struggle even to refer to which one's which, especially 5 and 6, really. But they become just this one overarching story. There would be great seasons of a TV show, but I think as movies, they just blend into one so much.
You're so right, and I think that that as well as that, like part of the problem is that Half-Blood Prince, which I'm sure we'll get to in more detail, but
No, we're
Half-Blood
going to skip
Prince
that one.
is about a the thing that Half-Blood Prince is about, in the same way that Goblet of Fire is about the Triwizard Tournament. The thing that Half-Blood Prince is about is a piece of story that could be probably left out of the film adaptation if it weren't named for it. And so I reckon that was our old friend J.K. Rowling doing a little trick where she was like, the movies have already been made. What if I name the sixth book after something that they'd probably cut out of the film adaptation?
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. It feels more... I mean, other than it being tonally, the last four being tonally consistent, they feel less like episodes of the week, which is what the first four, like they're all their own thing, and they turn into a serialized storyline.
Yeah, so David Yates took over, directed the franchise. He had made one film before Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and that was called The Tichborne Claimant, which came out in 1998. It's the only film he'd ever directed.
What the hell? How did he get this job?
So he was a TV director, had done a bunch of miniseries and stuff, and...
Well, that explains everything we just said about
he believes he was approached due to the studio seeing him fit to handle an edgy and emotional film with a political backstory because of his previous television projects, including State of Play, Sex Traffic, and The Girl in the Cafe. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, Guillermo del Toro, Matthew Vaughn, and Mira Neer were all turned down offers, or, Alfonso Cuarón also said he would love to come back to the franchise, and it didn't happen. But
wait, sorry, so were these other directors offered Order of the Phoenix and turned it down, or they all said they wanted to?
It varies depending on where you read it, but Del Toro was in talks for like almost every single one of these films, which is classic Del Toro.
Yeah, wow. I think overall as well, the Yates films, the I wouldn't have such this like bone to pick with David Yates if it wasn't for the fact that he took over the series, because I think what is fun about the first four is they each feel like there's a different storyteller at the helm. I mean, and this is a problem that we've come to see even more exacerbated with Star Wars and Marvel, is like the, interesting directorial voices being left out of the equation. Yeah. And not only is David Yates, I think most people would probably comfortably think of him as the worst director of any of them. But he's also like, here we find out he's like the least experienced and like the least stylistic.
Yeah, well, I think it's like, the thing is that it makes sense that he's come from even doing like miniseries and stuff, but because TV is not really a director's medium. And I always joke that David Yates's style is not having a style. And that's what TV directors are hired to do. They're hired to not have a style, and they're hired to competently deliver the producer or showrunner or whoever's vision. And that makes total sense. And David Yates, I'm sure, the fact that he's done 7 Harry Potter movies or Wizarding World movies at this point is like, I'm sure he just, delivers on time, on budget, and is happy to work with studios. And it's a shame. Like, I mean, you talked about the sort of different voices thing, but we had that with Mission Impossible as well, that like the first 5 of those each had a different director. But in that case, when they brought in Christopher McQuarrie, and then he also did the 6th one, and now he's doing 7 and 8 as well, that was very much like, well, okay, like it was cool having different voices behind each of them, but fucking Chris McQuarrie just makes the coolest fucking movies that it's like, okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like David Yates, if he had retired after 1 or 2, like maybe we would have a lot more memorable looking movies or something like that, because the driving style, the driving aesthetic of the last 4, very dark. And I don't mean thematically, I mean visually.
It's dull visually. The 6th one was nominated for Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards.
That's the worst looking one. That's insane to me. Wow, okay.
So, Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix came out in 2007. This was released 10 days before the book, The Deathly Hallows.
Wow.
Yeah. So
would have been some fun tie-in merch there, probably. Trying to think of how you would do that.
A book.
You get a book with your ticket.
What's it about?
Order of the Phoenix. Okay, so Voldemort's back, and
he's back.
He's Harry. Another slight upon Goblet of Fire, and if I could just say this just quickly. Imagine if the Triwizard Tournament happened in any book after the fourth one. Like, it'd be the ridiculousness would be highlighted. But anyway, he's back, and but Harry still has to go to school, and even worse, the Wizarding world at large, or at least the Ministry of Magic, is denying that Voldemort is back, and they're calling Harry Potter a liar. Allegiances are split as people don't know who to trust. So Harry is introduced to the Order of the Phoenix, which is a secret society of all his adult friends who are working against the Ministry to try and ensure that the Wizarding world is safe from Voldemort. And I'd say the main kick of this one is that we have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in Dolores Umbridge, who is actually from the Ministry of Magic and is sort of like a plant to try and...
well, she's a human being, but she's...
Yeah, sorry, but she's... Yeah.
I thought
she was a plant.
You have to be specific with this franchise because it could be a plant. It could be a. It could be a Biolante situation. So they're referring to the Godzilla villain who is a plant.
You could have referred to the what are the little screaming root babies from Chamber of Secrets called?
Yeah, what are they called?
Musgroves or something.
Casey Musgroves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. It was Casey Musgrove.
So Dolores Umbridge is planted there by Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, and she's basically there to disseminate anti-Voldemort is back propaganda. It's basically, it's very the Red Scare. It's very McCarthyism. It's like, so you know, like when
these are big words. We haven't talked about McCarthyism since Lady in the Tramp.
Oh, haven't we? So basically, McCarthyism, for those who don't know, was after World War II. If you didn't like someone, you could tell everyone they were a communist and get them the 1940s version of cancelled. And this is basically what that is. So you can't talk about Voldemort. You can't say he's back because that is a lie. She's a deliciously frustrating character, played by an actress who I can never remember the name of. Imelda Staunton. And we've also got Helena Bonham Carter as Bellatrix Lestrange, who is Sirius Black's cousin. And the plot revolves around Harry trying to find the prophecy. And he finds the prophecy by going into the secret room in the Ministry of Magic, where they get attacked by all the Death Eaters. And who should die? Sirius Black, a guy who I remember being in the series a lot more than he ultimately is.
I remember that the book for this must have come out, like, I remember, 2003 this book came out, and then so that was around the same time that the Prisoner of Azkaban movie came out, and I remember my sister crying because Sirius died, and I was like, who cares? He's the Prisoner of Azkaban. He's the bad guy.
Yeah. There's no time for tears in the movie though, Richard, because about 5 minutes after he dies, they're all talking about the positives of the year and packing up to get on the train to go back home to London. But it's this movie suffers greatly from being the longest book crammed into what didn't need to be the one of the shorter movies in the
second
series.
Shortest movie according to IMDb trivia. If you don't count Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, this is the shortest movie in the franchise.
Why wouldn't you count?
Exactly.
So yeah, and it's like the book is so long, and I mean,
when the book came out, it was the biggest fucking book I'd ever seen.
If you listened to last week's episode, I'm pretty sure I would have said on there that I regard Order of the Phoenix to be like the peak of the lore story. Like Chamber of Secrets is my favorite standalone story or story. This is my favorite lore story or Laurie. At least in book form. In movie form, it's nonsense. It flies at a breakneck pace. There is so much stuff that has
broke my neck.
There's so much stuff that's just left out of it that, like, I don't remember what it is. I can just tell from the storytelling that stuff has been left out.
Yeah.
You messaged me and you said to me, I can't believe, like, this is such a weird choice for your favorite because you were like, I feel like it's about nothing.
Yeah.
And that is a really good analysis of the film. No, of the film. Whereas the book I remember being better.
Well, it's like this one and Half-Blood Prince, are like, the Order of the Phoenix and the Half-Blood Prince are like, who cares about those actual...
I mean, Order of the Phoenix is a little more.
It's
relevant.
a little more. It sounds. It's a cool sounding name. Half-Blood Prince, I don't like as a title, but but Order of the Phoenix is like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, like, I just feel like Prisoner of Azkaban, Goblet of Fire, all like, and Chamber of Secrets and Philosopher's Stone all fit so much better. And I mean, even Deathly Hallows is like, Deathly Hallows is falls a little bit into the camp of like a cool sounding thing that's not like, I mean, it kind of is, but you've also got the Horcruxes, but they're introduced into
We'll get to it. Oh my god! Do you want me to cut that out?
Have a listen to how it sounds.
That sounded phlegmy.
Was
that a forbidden curse or whatever they're called? Did you just yell the Cruciatus?
Yeah, I was speaking parcel mouth.
There is a confrontation with Dumbledore and Voldemort at the end. Everyone sees, or at least the minister sees, that Voldemort's back, and so he's like, he's back, and everyone believes them in the end. And so we go forward with less good guys still alive, and everyone knowing that the world is fucked. And that's the end of Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah. So you mentioned the character of Dolores Umbridge. What do you think of the character? It's one of those performances that, like, seeing Imelda Staunton in anything else now, I hate her a little bit because she's so good in this.
She's so good in this, and Umbridge is such a good character. I really, really like Dolores Umbridge as a character. I think that
the idea of it, not like...
Yeah, not her as a person.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Is like this was right in the golden age of villains you love to hate. I think, and so like she really delivers in that area. I think it's this maybe like my Christian upbringing and then leaving that has like made me more sensitive to like old boomer ladies who are sure that they are right
absolutely
when like you're so fucking wrong, just fucking listen to me.
Yeah, it's like everyone's had an experience with an Umbridge, you know, like, that's the thing. It's I said while I was watching it as well that Olivia Colman, I think, would have done justice to this character. I mean, she does justice to everything because she's amazing, but I think she would have done this character very well because essentially plays the same character in Fleabag. That kind of thing where you could like get a parent and be like, no, I need you to see how awful this person is, and they would have a conversation with her and be like, she's lovely, what are you doing? She was smiling the whole time, she was polite, and it's like, no, you don't, like, it's this thing, and because we're on the same side as the kids, we we see it, but just truly a despicable woman. Stephen King called her the greatest make-believe villain to come along since Hannibal Lecter.
She also allows for the best line in the movie, which isn't said by her, it's said by Professor McGonagall when Professor McGonagall is comforting Trelawney after Umbridge has fired her, and she says to McGonagall, "Something you'd like to say, dear?" And Professor McGonagall goes, "Oh, there are several things I would like to say."
I love McGonagall, man.
Yes,
very good. Maggie Smith.
Thank you. It's interesting. I was reflecting on this. McGonagall isn't part of the Order of the Phoenix. She's like a neutral player throughout
there's good people on both sides.
Well, like, she's just a teacher. That's all she is, and it's because so many of the teachers are
she's also
part of the Order. That's true. She is that boy does that stay relevant throughout the series, that she can turn into a cat. That could have come in handy at some point, probably.
How?
I don't know, she could do some spying.
Mm.
She could do some spying. They have bad guys on campus for the last few years.
Yeah. Weird shit going down at Hogwarts. This is funny that this is our second franchise this year.
That should be the tagline. The tagline for Chamber of Secrets is something evil has returned to Hogwarts. The tagline for Order of the Phoenix. There's some weird shit going on down at Hogwarts this year.
I was thinking this is our second franchise this year where it's just send everyone home. After sleepaway camp.
Oh, yeah. yeah.
One student dies, send them all home. What are you doing?
Yeah, Cedric Diggory dies. With Hogwarts has lost its license to operate as a place of education. Yeah, I guess the thing I think you have to accept is just that wizards just live more dangerous lives than muggles, I guess, because the amount of stuff that just has to be let go is well, I guess that's just how it works here.
Yeah, that's the tagline for Half-Blood Prince.
It's just how things go.
Wizards just live more dangerous lives than you. Speaking of taglines and in a similar sort of thing, posters, the posters for these films are pretty funny. There was a bit of controversy around them. There was one because it was being released in IMAX 3D, and so they'd released all this promotional artwork for the film, and then when the IMAX poster came out, it was one of the pieces of artwork they'd already released, or the photography, but the IMAX poster enhanced Emma Watson's breasts.
No way.
Still underage in this film as well.
Oh fuck! That's horrendous.
Yeah, not
crap.
not substantially, but enough that
imagine if it was substantially. Imagine that poster. They could get away with that.
Yeah, but it's they've clearly done it. There's also the actual poster for this film has a sort of main trio, and then I think Neville's in the background as well. And then there's just this redhead girl who doesn't look like anyone we've seen before.
It's not Ginny?
It is Ginny, but it does not at all look like Ginny Weasley.
I gotta look this up. Order of the Phoenix, you say?
Yeah. It's almost like it's a different model for the film, for it.
Yeah, okay. And her boobs! That's crazy that they would do that.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's wild stuff for 2005 or whatever. Or no, what year was it? 2007?
7, yeah.
Wow, that's horrible.
So, yeah, you had previously claimed to me that Order of the Phoenix was your favorite. What, is it just because of the lore stuff and you're conflating your experience with the novel with the film? Or, watching the film, do you still, how do you
No, I would argue I never conflated that, actually. I would say I've always been talking about the book when I've sung Order of the Phoenix praises.
Oh, okay. Pull up the tape. Pull up the tape. I'm AJ and Order of the Phoenix is my favourite movie.
No, they've got it on tape! It's Polyjuice Potion. Isn't Polyjuice Potion a fucking liability in the wizarding world?
Oh, it's
Jesus
insane.
Christ. The amount of check everywhere you go. The Gringotts, there should be a Polyjuice Potion checker.
Yeah.
You're insane. It's so easy to come by. A 14-year-old made it.
And the last one had we have to check check your identity, and she's like, why not? It's well, because you could have Polyjuice Potion, which is what you are doing.
You're a wizard. You could be fucking anyone. No, I think that the book I remember, and it's been 10 years since I've read it, but the book I remember feeling very mature. I really liked how much Harry kind of feels like more of a character in the fifth book than he has before. He's a lot angrier, and you feel that anger. You're
very
mad.
angsty.
Yeah, but it works, and I like that angst, and I think it plays into it. I think it's great how there's this really great sort of message in it, I guess, about what it feels like to have your life controlled by someone who's not even talking. Like, someone trying to help you by controlling your life for you, but they're also not even talking to you or having any relationship with you, because Dumbledore is like real absent for a lot of, like, he's not talking to Harry, and things like that.
He's being a real Dumble fuck.
Yeah, real Dumble fuck about it. And so I always really liked that, and I just think that the reveals are more interesting. The movie, as I said before, watching this movie, it's probably, I think Half-Blood Prince is worse. No, do I? What did I rank them?
What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes? We haven't said that yet.
79.
You're so close.
95.
It's 78%.
Right. Yeah, I think it is that,
it's the second
lesser,
lowest, but for the record.
Oh, right. It is that lesser direction, like less interesting directing, and also just the crunched nature of, like,
strip out so much of it.
Strip out so much, and so much of it is told through montage, and a montage in a Harry Potter movie means like flying head first through magical newspapers.
That's right. Yeah, I messaged you while watching it that this is our second franchise where one of the movies is like 50% montage after Rocky. That it's like this movie is like entirely montage, and the closest thing David Yates has to a style is just going in and out of newspapers.
And it's a style born out of necessity. He's pushed into it because he has to tell a 800-word novel in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know why this one's only 2 hours either. I guess make it as short as you can, but
yeah, make it 2 minutes. I don't give a fuck.
Make it 2 minutes. I think the best scene in the film is the opening one with Harry and Dudley. I think that's a great scene.
Is that this one?
Yeah, that's Order of the Phoenix.
Yes, it is, because he uses the Patronus charm and then goes on trial.
I love how you haven't seen Dudley for a movie, and you come back and he's like this very he's grown up a lot since we've last seen him, and as in like size wise, not emotionally. He's
not
still
like his penis.
No, yeah, his penis. That's why they call him Big D. It's like, how's it going, Big D? And I don't know. I think that's like a really cool merging of worlds that you don't see or read enough of in the other parts of the series, and I find that really interesting. I think it's always fun to see two characters that don't like each other thrust into a little adventure together. You know,
like this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. And this is like got shades of that. So I really like that scene. I think it's such a promising start to a movie where it ends up really the only good thing about it is this horrendous teacher that's joined the cast.
Yeah. Arguably, like, the worst part of the film in some ways.
Is the best part of the film. Do you know, I found out that Tom Riddle cursed the Defense Against the Dark Arts position.
I have heard that, yeah.
I'd never heard that till this. I was watching a ranking video of who's the best and worst defense, ranking the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. And yeah, apparently that's why it's a new one every year, because Tom Riddle applied for it and was denied in a very like Hitler was rejected from art school kind of situation. Yeah. Like, and so like, yeah, he cursed the position in it, and no teacher may hold it for more than a year.
Yeah. Well, we do get a new one next year in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and it's someone who's been vying for the role the entire bloody franchise, Professor.
And what does he do with
Snape?
it?
And so, people have been waiting the entire franchise to see Snape as the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, and you know what? We don't. We don't see it. He's the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher for the whole movie, and we don't see a single one of his classes.
I wonder if that's in the book. I wonder if he teaches it in the book.
Surely,
Richard. So this was also directed by David Yates, as we said. Came out 2009.
Yeah. So it was delayed 8 months, which the Warner Brothers received like death threats for. It was supposed to come out in November 2008, and then was delayed to, like, it was finished, ready to go, but they delayed it to the middle of 2009, and that was because of the writers' strike.
Okay.
What would you have guessed?
I've heard before it was to do with Twilight.
No, so Twilight just coincidentally took its
Okay.
2008 spot after it vacated it. But so because of the writer's strike of 2006, 2007, that was sort of going to have a roll-on effect in 2008, 2009 for films coming out. So they moved it there to guarantee a big blockbuster for 2009.
Right.
You know, we now know that 2009 wasn't in any danger of not having a big blockbuster, seeing as how it has the highest grossing movie of all time came out then. But so... And I think as well that also it's something as well to do with The Dark Knight being in 2008 that they're like, oh, I guess we don't need two. So, but yeah, so it was delayed just to have a big sort of July blockbuster.
And in like a little over 10 years, that mentality has totally changed to how many blockbusters can we cram? Or is this just Warner Bros. Specifically?
This is Warner Bros. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, so this was had a budget of $250 million. It's one of the most expensive movies ever made, and is the most expensive Harry Potter movie. Which sounds like, oh, weird. Why is the sixth one most expensive? But then, as soon as you think about it, it's like, well, they got more expensive each film, and then the last two were one production. So even though the cost of the production would have been bigger when you split that into two movies, the budget becomes smaller. So
yeah, right, man. For the most expensive Harry Potter movie, and the one they got nominated for best cinematography, this film literally looks like mud. Yeah. It is a brown film. Like me and my flatmate were watching it on the DVD that my other flatmate has. We had to pause it to try and change the screen like settings because we just couldn't see anything. It was too brown. It's not like it was too dark either. It's more like it felt like nothing had definition. This film literally looks like shit.
There's a behind the scenes thing where like the cinematographer and David Yates like originally had a lot more digital color correction on it, and then they got to a point where they were like, actually, you can't fucking see anything in this movie, so they toned it down a little bit.
Wow, they didn't tone it down enough.
No.
It's you hear so much about grey movies, and especially in Harry Potter, like, oh, they just get so grey, and a lot of the Marvel movies, they're just grey. You don't get a lot of brown movies.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot
usually
of dirt-coloured movies.
Or like
old
photographs, pirate maps.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this looks like, a pirate map. So what did this have on Rotten Tomatoes?
What would you guess?
Is it higher than Phoenix?
It is.
So Phoenix was 78. I'm going to go like 80.
83.
So what's the lowest one on Rotten Tomatoes?
Well, we'll see. Do you want me to just tell you now?
Yeah, what is it?
So, the fun fact, Deathly Hallows Part 1 is the lowest at 77, and Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the highest at 96.
That's so interesting. I would not expect those two films to be in any sort of trouble critically. So this one is about... What is it about? So, once again, like, these students are just inexplicably forced to return to the death trap that is Hogwarts. It's like sending lambs to the slaughter, basically.
It's like sending Fred to Camp I Want a Pee-Pee.
It's just like that. And the kind of crux of this is Dumbledore uses Harry to... The Horcrux of this uses Harry to convince one Professor Slughorn, played by Jim Broadbent, to return to his post as a teacher of Hogwarts. We haven't met him before. He's a previously unseen character, because Dumbledore believes he holds secret information on how to defeat Voldemort that he's yet to reveal, and he's convinced to return because he was one of those teachers that like really like they phrase it in the movie like collects students, where, you know, he'll proudly be like, this really famous student, they were one of mine, and he has a Christmas party he invites them to, and like Harry Potter would be the jewel in his crown, basically. And in a similar way to Umbridge, I do think Broadbent is so much fun in this movie. In a movie I'm not really that into, he's like the best part again, I think. And he has this really like interesting performance. I remember watching this after reading the books when I was 20 and thinking that it's a totally different description of Slughorn. Like, I knew who Jim Broadbent was, and this was not how I pictured Slughorn at all. But so basically the through getting friendly with Professor Slughorn, Harry discovers that the secret that he holds is that Voldemort, or Tom Riddle, when he was a student, was looking into something called a Horcrux. And a Horcrux, this could be useful, actually. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who don't actually know what a Horcrux is. They just know the term, and that it's may as well be called the MacGuffin crux, A Horcrux is...
The whore MacGuffin.
The whore's MacGuffin. A Horcrux, the whore's MacGuffin. So a Horcrux, when you kill someone, you split your soul. This is the lore of Harry Potter. You split your soul, and you can, depending on how many people you kill, I guess, you can then take those pieces of your soul and put them in an object, and then that object becomes a Horcrux. And what this means is that after your body is died for whatever reason, you could live on because you are technically still alive.
But the idea would be that you can't die because part of your soul still exists in the Horcrux.
That's what I meant. Yeah. And so that's how Voldemort has gone and come back, is because he was kept alive by Horcruxes. And that would be the end of the story if Snape doesn't kill Dumbledore.
What?
At the end, Snape kills Dumbledore. And one of the things I like least about Half-Blood Prince, and both the book and the movie, because I remember in the books feeling like the shark had been well and truly leaped over not too long into Half-Blood Prince, is that the first 5 books, the treatment of Snape in the first 5 books and the first 5 movies is very much like, you think he's bad, but he's actually a pretty cool guy. Like especially Philosopher's Stone.
He sits backwards in his chair and stuff.
Yeah, he nearly falls off like a fucking idiot. No, in Philosopher's Stone especially, the twist is he's actually a good guy. Yeah. And throughout all the first 5, that's kind of kept consistent, that this character who just doesn't like the main characters actually isn't a bad person. He's actually got good, is actually a good guy. This film, and spoilers for the rest of Harry Potter, he is a good guy, but this film wants you to believe he's a bad guy. And that he's actually a Death Eater. And that is treated with, no narrative reveal. It's just, he is of course he is. He's Snape. And it's I liked Snape. And I didn't,
I wanted to talk about this, because they could have had so much more, and it would be a better film for it if it really played with his allegiances. Because we see him doing stuff both helping Dumbledore, both against Dumbledore, does the most fucking against Dumbledore thing you can do, kills him, but
the worst thing you can do to a Dumbledore.
It's fatal. It's fatal to a Dumbledore. But the opening scene of the film is him getting his fucking tattoo and shit, hanging out with the Death Eaters, and it's the movie would just be so much better if it didn't have that scene in it.
Yeah, sure, yeah, totally.
Because the whole time it's well, we know he's a Death Eater, and then we do find out there's more to it than that, and Deathly Hallows Part 2, but it's just this, like you said, the fact that there's no sort of narrative reveal, it's just, Snape just shows up as one of the Death Eaters, and it's there's so much to it that we haven't, it's such a weird fucking movie. Yeah. It's a poorly told film. And also the thing is, you just gave us this whole fucking plot description. You didn't once mention the Half-Blood Prince.
Because Snape is the Half-Blood Prince.
Because it doesn't fucking matter.
Doesn't fucking matter. Basically, Harry finds a potions book that is previously owned, and the previous owner calls himself the Half-Blood Prince, and it's full of spell hacks.
Life hacks. But it's it's such a book 1 or 2 plot point. That totally. He's got something to help him at his schoolwork, and it's who gives a shit about his fucking schoolwork? Yeah, he's gone through so much. It's I guess it's he's gone through so much. Yeah, he needs to get better at his schoolwork and to have something to help him out. But the movie doesn't even say why he's the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, to the book's credit, it goes into it more,
Yeah.
whatever. But in this, it's like the only reason it's even fucking included is because it's the title. I bet you there were conversations about changing what this one was called so that they could save a few minutes runtime by not including the Half-Blood Prince stuff.
Yeah.
Because when Snape kills Dumbledore, Harry chases after him and he's like, I am the Half-Blood Prince. And it's like, okay,
it's supposed to be this
half-blood?
like dun dun dun
Yeah.
moment,
but
but
it's
yeah,
stupid.
the only thing that really helped is that he's able to brew a perfect potion, which wins him the liquid luck, which becomes an important plot point. But and it is what helps him get to do get the secret information from Sluggy. But yeah.
One of the worst written lines that J.K. Rowling's ever done is in Half-Blood Prince, where it's like after Dumbledore dies, and it's written as he's dead, ejaculated Slughorn. Like that's a written line in Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing she's ever written.
I remember reading it and being like, I didn't even know ejaculated could mean
not
not coming. like it's so strange. And like I also remember feeling like I read these in 2013, right?
Like
and I remember reading
ejaculation.
No, I mean I read this line and was like, this book's been out for like 6 years and no one's mentioned this.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a famous thing that everyone knows about Half-Blood Prince, is that it has the word ejaculated in it for no necessary reason.
This is where we really start to the romances of the films really start to become a big thing. And my God, I don't believe Harry and Ginny for a second. It's such a fucking lame pairing. It's so like, I mean, maybe in the books you really believe, but I'm sorry, Bonnie Wright. I'm sorry, Danny Radcliffe. You guys don't have any chemistry. It's so just like dull, and it's like I wish that the filmmakers had known this the whole time, and because it just feels like, oh, this actress that we probably weren't expecting to put in every film when we cast her in Philosopher's Stone. That it's just you've now also you guys have been in love, even though she gave Neville a handy in Goblet of Fire.
And as well as that, we haven't talked about it yet, despite the fact that she is introduced in Order of the Phoenix. Is Luna Lovegood not who you set Harry up with?
Yeah, they're great.
Like, she's this quirky manic pixie dream girl.
manic Cornish pixie dream girl.
Yeah. Like she's interesting. She's suffered loss.
She doesn't wear shoes.
She doesn't wear shoes. She's
probably the most important Ravenclaw.
Yeah, easily the most important Ravenclaw in the series. And she ends up with Neville. But Neville was just with Ginny in Goblet of Fire. They should have stayed together, and Harry should have got with Luna. I think that's a much more interesting romance to dig into. Maybe it's less convenient to have Luna traveling around everywhere when Ginny is attached to the Weasleys. Yeah, I don't know. It's just odd. I buy Hermione and Ron a little bit more, but
there's hints at that throughout. But Harry and Ginny just feels like it's just you know how Harry and Ginny have always been a thing? It's like, no, they haven't.
There's a point in this movie where she gets on her knees to tie his shoes, and that's not where anyone thought that scene was going when they first saw it.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing as well. This film was the first one to come out after Dumbledore was revealed to be gay.
Oh.
And apparently there was a line in the script where Dumbledore mentions having a crush on a girl when he was young, and J.K. Rowling said, actually, no, he's gay. And the only romantic infatuation he ever had was with Grindelwald, who he had to defeat in a wizard duel. And it's funny. I remember this one coming out and then watching the film in the cinema and being like, all right, is Dumbledore actually gay? And like everything he did, I'd be like, he's gay. Well,
I mean, Hey, what did you message me
he,
about?
he grabs, like, in one of the first scenes in the movie, he goes to the bathroom and then comes back with a magazine on knitting patterns, and he's like, "Do you mind if I take this? I love knitting patterns." And it's like, oh, he's gay. We get it.
I like to imagine J.K. Rowling like saw that line about him having a crush and was like, "No, take that out." And then she's like, "Put this line in."
Yeah.
He comes out with a magazine about knitting patterns.
Yeah, or it was like Steve Kloves and David Yates being like, how do we make him gay? Or like this thing they've been writing, like Steve Klove's been writing this character the whole time, and now he's like, I don't know how to write a gay character. Like,
it's 2007. I don't know how to write a gay character. It's 2009. I think other than Jim Broadbent as Professor Slughorn, I think the shining performance in this movie is actually Tom Felton as Lucius Malfoy. No, sorry, Draco Malfoy, who essentially plays like a school shooter, like is basically like a planning, someone who's planning to kill the headmaster.
Yeah, and you can tell he's conflicted, and I mean, also like this is one of his sort of like meatiest roles in terms of like actually portraying that inner conflict. In the fifth one, he's just a bumbling fucking idiot. Like, he's not really in it. He runs after the room of requirement which is the whole thing of that.
Yeah.
And then it's a broom closet and they all fall over each other. It's like he does nothing in Order of the Phoenix. And then he comes back the next year and it's like, yeah, remember this like conflicted, tortured, like portrait of Draco Malfoy we've been painting. And I think Half-Blood Prince probably suffers from having to cut down Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, no, totally, because you can treat Malfoy as a background character in some of these stories, but you shouldn't do it in Order of the Phoenix because it's leading up to his biggest role in the story in Half-Blood Prince. And I think that this is not the movie. Order of the Phoenix was not the movie to turn him into like a fumbling background character. Like it should have been built up more because I think he's really good in this, and he's not really in the next two that much. He's in them. He's in them, but it doesn't have as much of a role to play. And I don't know. I thought he was the most interesting. In a movie that looks like poop and Oscar nominated poop, mind you, and is mainly about like this bullshit Half-Blood Prince storyline and these half-baked romances. I found the disturbed little
romance.
I found this disturbed little Nazi wizard to be like the most compelling storyline in it.
It is worth mentioning as well that Daniel Radcliffe is not a fan of this movie.
Really?
He says his acting is bad in it. He says it's just not good.
He picked this one that he said his acting's bad.
Yeah, well, he became a bit of an alcoholic, and he can tell which scenes he was fucking loaded in.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
So I got a couple of pieces of dumb IMDb trivia for us. So while Dumbledore and the young Tom Riddle talk in the orphanage, there are rocks sitting on the windowsill. More importantly, there are 7 rocks. There are 7 Horcruxes. There is also a picture of the cave in which one is found. Just
7 books too. Do you remember that Facebook group that was like, the Harry Potter books are my Horcruxes?
Yeah. Because J.K. Rowling put a bit of her soul into each one of these books.
Yeah.
When the trio sit down at the 3 broomsticks, Hermione orders 3 butterbeers and put a little ginger in mine. That really belongs in the quotes section. But this is a first for dumb IMDb trivia. This one actually calls itself out. So this one says, silly trivia. Near the end, Dumbledore, Sir Michael Gambon, tells Harry, I'm an old man now, to which Harry replies, you don't look any different to me, sir. The original Dumbledore was Richard Harris, who looked and sounded completely different.
That's pretty funny. What is dumb IMDb trivia if not just silly trivia?
Yeah. You know? We should call this segment Silly Trivia in honor of that post. We are introduced to the concept of the Horcrux in this film, and we kind of get the first, it's revealed that there was some that already happened, but we get the locket and it's opened up and it's revealed like this note that's like, I've got the real Horcrux from RAB. And it was like, oh, who's RAB? A lot of people actually worked it out because that the Black is, out of all the sort of surnames that Rowling had come up with, Black was the one that sort of most easily translated into other languages. And reading the book in other languages, the initials were always matched whatever Black was in that translation. So it was RAZ in for Sirius Zwarts in Dutch, and RAM for Sirius Muster in Finnish, for example. Yeah.
That's such a great little problem. That's like how when The Last Jedi was announced and people didn't know if it was plural or not, but the French title used singular. No, I think it actually did use plural, because confusingly the movie is singular.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or maybe it didn't, depending on your interpretation of that movie.
It's like The Last Samurai.
Yeah. It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the one Horcrux they find has been stolen.
I actually should pull up a list of the Horcruxes because
please do, because as we go into Deathly Hallows, where there are Horcruxes and Deathly Hallows, two movies which have two sets of multiple MacGuffins for some reason, like it would be interesting to find out, like, or maybe I can, if you get them in front of you, I can list what I think the seven are.
Yeah,
guess what I think the seven are.
Actual list. Lord Voldemort's Horcruxes. Here we go. Okay. What have we got?
So there's 7. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the Horcruxes are his ring.
Yeah, Marvilo Gaunt's ring.
The Tom Riddle's diary. That locket that they find.
Salazar Slytherin's locket.
The cup that they find, the little goblet thing.
Helga Hufflepuff's cup.
Rowena Ravenclaw's tiara thing.
Diadem.
Nagini the snake. And Harry Potter himself is a Horcrux. Yeah, okay. Not that hard then. It was going to be harder.
So, well, yeah, that is the 7 Deathly the 7 Horcruxes, but what are the 3 Deathly Hallows?
It's so stupid. It's so... we'll get into it. Are we getting into Deathly Hallows?
Yeah, we're getting into Deathly Hallows now.
Yeah.
Deathly Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out in 2010. In 2008, it was announced that it would be split into 2 books. There was a bunch of discussions about it.
2 movies.
2 movies, sorry, yeah. There was a bunch of discussions about it, but essentially they said, we want to stay true to Rowling's vision. And, yeah, I Warner Brothers studio heads sort of initially disagreed with it, but yeah, it was found it had to be done. But Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, I think, were talked about being split into multiple films as well. Alfonso Cuarón was desperately keen to return for this movie, for these 2 movies, and Del Toro was keen but had to drop out due to The Hobbit, and Christopher Columbus was actually keen to come back as well. And for some reason they chose David Yates instead. So
let's go through them. First of all, Del Toro had to drop out because of The Hobbit. Yeah. Oh my god. Christopher Columbus is not the right choice for Deathly Hallows, I don't think. I would have loved Alfonso Cuarón to come back. I think that would have been the way to go, instead of giving David Yates free reign, first right of refusal, it seems, to any future Harry Potter movies. I said this at the start, but I just really like the idea of a series like this where each one or two is helmed by a different guy or girl.
Or them.
Or them. And so, yeah, that's disappointing that they went with old Daye.
Yeah, what's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 about?
So they decide
that
they're not...
Hogwarts.
No, they don't go back to Hogwarts. They decide not to return to Hogwarts, and instead they're on the fucking lam because Hogwarts is not safe. Snape, now outed as a Death Eater, is now... the headmaster of Hogwarts, and Cornelius Fudge has been replaced as the Minister of Magic by someone whose name I don't know, but is played by Bill Nighy for 2 scenes before he's killed off screen.
Yeah, it's Scrimmager or something like that. I don't know how to say his name, but it's
So that feels like Bill Nighy waited till the last film and was
he was
like,
supposed
"Can
to
I please
be
play
in
someone?"
the 6th one, but the part was cut and just saved for the 7th one.
Because there's a lot, like, the film opens with a shot of his face and everything. And then he's considerably not really in it that much.
Yeah.
So it's basically Harry, Ron, and Hermione have escaped and are on the run looking for the other Horcruxes to try and kill them. What do? They manage to find the Gryffindor sword.
Yeah.
And they destroy the locket. They destroy Does the locket the only one they destroy in this one?
God, I'm gonna have to pull up the page again, aren't I? So the ring's destroyed in 6, the locket's destroyed in this one, then the rest are all in the next one, and the diary in 2, obviously.
Yeah, so, and throughout their journey, they keep seeing this mysterious symbol in various places, which is like a triangle with a circle in the middle of it and a line going through the circle. Felt that was a very adequate...
you've probably seen it on a lot of, tattooed on a lot of white women.
I think there's a very apt description. Usually describing something visual is very hard to do.
I think it's an incredibly simple symbol. I don't think it was that difficult to describe.
You could say something nice. You could just agree with me that it was hard to do. I'm sweating from doing that. Anyway, the symbol is the symbol of the Deathly Hallows. And Richard, before watching this movie, did you know what a hallow was?
Well, I mean, I got my sister to tell me once she read the book.
Because when I didn't read this till 6 years after it came out, the entire time I thought a hallow was like a chamber, like a room.
I assumed hallow was a word made up for the movie or the book.
Is it?
No.
What does it mean technically?
Hallow refers to honor. Something honored as holy.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Like hallowed ground.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the Deathly Hallows, they find out from Luna Lovegood's dad, who's played by Rhys Ifans, who I forgot.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I didn't even notice it when watching it. They're from this old story from The Beetle and the Bard, which is like this classic wizarding storybook anthology, which I believe is actually also published as well, and you can buy. Yeah, well, along with Quidditch Through the Quidditch Through the Ages and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Yeah,
like the sort of
the tie-in novellas.
But no, it's not from Tales of Beetle the Bard, is it?
So Tales of Beetle.
Hermione sees the symbol in her copy of it.
Tales of the Beetle and the Bard is the name of the storybook compilation. The Tale of the Three Brothers is in the compilation. She reads it aloud to them, doesn't she?
No, she reads it from memory. It's like, because they're like, what is this symbol? And they're like, oh, it's the Deathly Hallows. And she goes, oh, that's right, I actually know all about this.
But they also established that Ron has read Beetle and the Bard. I don't know. It was implied to me that
it's established as like, oh, everyone knows the story of the three brothers. I didn't realize that they had a symbol.
Why would Dumbledore leave Hermione, Beetle, and the Bard in his will if it didn't have the three brothers story?
Because it has the symbol on it.
But why would the symbol be on it? I don't know. It's not he could have just given her a sheet of paper with the symbol on it.
He could have just told her.
Yeah. That Dumbledore across this whole series is like, dude, could you just tell us what's going on? All right, so the Tale of the Three Brothers, which is told in the movie as this like beautifully animated little mini vignette.
I remember before I saw the movie, everyone's like, you're going to love this bit.
And basically it's the story of these three brothers who they made a bridge over a river, and Death, the Grim Reaper, was so annoyed that they cheated drowning that he decided to trick them by offering them each a gift of their choosing, knowing that it would one day mean their demise. And the first brother chose a wand that would make him the most powerful wizard. So Death crafted the Elder Wand, which did make him a powerful wizard, but then he was then killed for it. The second brother asked for the Resurrection Stone, which allowed him to resurrect his dead wife, but then she was so cold and didn't want to be alive that he killed himself. And then the last brother, who was more cunning, decided that he wanted to escape death for as long as possible, so he chose an invisibility cloak. And then all of this is irrelevant except for the Elder Wand, by the way. But basically the idea is that if you get the Deathly Hallows, I don't know,
you become the master of death.
You become the master of death, something that is not at any point any character's goal, and it's mainly just we have to get the Elder Wand because...
And no character ever does as well.
Get all 3 Hallows.
Yeah. So there's a wizard fairy tale called The Tale of the Three Brothers, which is part of the published the Tales of Beetle the Bard. But I don't think in universe it's not supposed to be part of it.
Okay. I don't quite understand why.
Like in universe, like she's just like Hermione just remembers this fairy tale.
Okay. So the story ends with like there's a whole thing where they get kidnapped by Death Eaters and have to escape, and Dobby dies. A bunch of people die.
And there's a guy called Mundungus.
Mundungus. Dobby dies. Mad Eye, you know that guy that we don't actually know that well. He dies earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Hedwig dies. The owl.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this because they transport Harry at the start of the film, and they do it by all taking polyjuice potions so you can't tell who the real Harry is. And they get there, and so Hedwig dies, and it was this big sad moment for this bird we haven't seen in ages. But they arrive there, and they're like, "Is everyone okay?" And they're just like, "Oh, Mad Eye died." We don't see him die or anything like that. But so they're transporting Harry, and they're all on broomsticks except for the real Harry, who's riding in Hagrid's sidecar. And it's like, presumably, you just assume that that's the real Harry, right? But what happens is Hedwig comes over, and he's like, "Oh wow, it's Hedwig," and then bam, Hedwig gets Avada Kedavra. There's a fan theory about who killed Hedwig. Have you heard this?
No, very interesting.
So yeah, there's a fan theory. So it's an unseen Death Eater that just a green bolt comes out of the sky. There's a fan theory that it's Snape kills Hedwig, and the idea being that because Hedwig is able to identify the real Harry and comes over to be like, "Oh Harry, I haven't seen you in ages." And Snape knows that Hedwig would give the real Harry away, so quickly killed her so as not to give away the real Harry to continue protecting him.
Because Snape is a hero. Imagine killing Dumbledore and Hedwig and coming out as like one of the bravest men Harry ever knew.
It's even known, yeah.
I like.
But
that
it's quite a good theory, yeah.
Yeah, there's a really creepy scene in this where the Death Eaters are having a meeting, and they've got a wizard, a Hogwarts teacher levitating above the table, and they just sort of torture her to death while Snape has to watch and pretend like he's chill with it.
Yeah. What'd you think of this film?
Listen, I've heard this one being called the best one by a lot of people.
Are you fucking insane?
Well, I think it's interesting that it has the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score, because I've heard it next to Prisoner of Azkaban and maybe Part 2. I would say this is often what people say is their favourite one, outside of the nostalgic love for the first two. And I think that, as much as the direction is still boring, but what this one doesn't do that the David Yates' other ones do, or the first two do, is that it slows down because it's half a book. And when David Yates can direct half a book, it is way better than Order of the Phoenix,
and the breakneck speed of Order
and
of
Half-Blood
Phoenix,
Prince. So I think that's one of the reasons why this one and the next one, I quite like them. And when I was ranking them on Letterboxd this week, I sort of found myself, despite not liking David Yates' direction, I put Part 2 and Part 1 as my second and third favourite after Order of the Phoenix. Wow. And even then, I prefer the stories of these to Order of the Phoenix. No, sorry, not Order of the Phoenix, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, good. I was like,
no. Order of the Phoenix is probably the worst one. But No, sorry, Prisoner of Azkaban. Prisoner of Azkaban is better direction, but not as interesting of a story. The two Deathly Hallows has a better story, but not as interesting direction.
I think Azkaban's my favorite story as well.
That's
I think Azkaban's such
that's
a good
fine.
story.
You can think that as well.
Well, I'm not going to.
Okay. Wow, you sure showed me.
So yeah, this film is kind of like a road movie, really, and I wanted to talk about this because I know you've always said that you hate that the seventh book, well, the seventh story doesn't feature them going to Hogwarts. That's like, you've got 7 years at Hogwarts, and 6 of the 7 books are your first 6 years at Hogwarts, and the 7th one isn't.
Yeah, and like I know I just said they're my second and third favorite films of the franchise as well. It's very hard to rank these films. I'm very conflicted on so many elements because, and like I think Prisoner of Azkaban is the only one where it's everything you could want. Every other one is like missing an essential element of what the best version of this film could be, I think. But yeah, I just think it's
unsatisfying.
It's unsatisfying to not have it set at Hogwarts, and like the stupid retort that you get, and I'm calling it stupid. The stupid retort that people have given me for this over the years when I've said that it's annoying that it's not set in Hogwarts. People go like, well, how would it be set at Hogwarts? Like, it's, all the things that are happening there, it wouldn't work. And it's like, it's fiction. You can write whatever you want. You can make it so that they could go to Hogwarts, even if it like
you make it so the Horcruxes are all have to be at Hogwarts for whatever reason.
Yeah, something like that, or even like the
then why would he hide them there?
Or even if it started with the school year and like midway through,
because at the end of the 6th one he makes the decision, I'm not going back to Hogwarts next year. I'm gonna spend the year finding Horcruxes.
And I just feel like it would be way better if it. And do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? Is that the other 6 books and movies have a reason for being contained to a year. It is more realistic that if they're not going back to Hogwarts for their 7th year, it's more realistic that it should actually take them more or less than a year to find all the Horcruxes.
Well, yeah,
like it removes the structure from the story.
They should have just established you spend 6 years at Hogwarts and then have the Half-Blood Prince be he graduates, and then
that could be
it's like surprise that we're not finishing it in 6 books. There's a 7th book.
I don't know. Yeah, I just think that like it should be that you. The way I've always thought I would have done it if I was rewriting them was have it start with them going to Hogwarts, and they even if it's like they're only there for a semester before they decide it's actually too dangerous and bust out.
I do like that the second one returns to Hogwarts and we return to the Chamber of Secrets and Room of Requirement and stuff. I do really like all of that. But yeah, it's an interesting film. I want to talk to you as well about the dance scene in this.
Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, so
it's okay.
This is the I'm like crying, and you're like, "Hey, it's okay." The dance scene is famous in this movie because it is probably the most significant story beat that's not from the books. And like the inverse is often true. Often stuff is cut out of the movies.
Big Peeves fan.
No, the biggest disappointment was when Harry and Hermione go and to visit James and Lily's grave in Godric's Hollow. In the book, I remember that being like beautifully written, like this really introspective, really like kind of emotional internal moment, and in the movie that is. I mean, it's a movie and it's not a book, so I get why you had to change it, but it's reduced to a couple of seconds of introspection.
Well, that's how I feel as well about the opening scene. Well, not the opening scene necessarily, but one of the very early scenes when Hermione obliviates her parents, which like makes them forget everything, makes them forget they had a daughter, anything. That it's like, damn, this is like one of the hardest things she would have ever had to do in her life.
Yeah.
And it's like over in a few seconds, and then she just walks out and never thinks about it again.
I think presumably she unobliviates them when things get back to normal, but you're not shown that scene.
I don't think so.
I think in the books she does, is what I mean. Like,
I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway,
but yeah, the
dancing scene. So Ron has gone fucking bananas.
Ron's gone
wrong because the Horcrux was making him angry, and so he leaves
out for like months.
And then there's just the scene where Harry and Hermione are depressed because Ron's not around, and then some music starts playing, and Harry and Hermione begin waltzing and dancing to this track, which I looked up. It's a what did I tell you? It was a Nick Cave song.
It's Nick Cave, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't come out till like 7 years after the film is supposed to take place. But anyway, it's this very sweet scene that I think it's interesting because of how hard the platonic friendship of Harry and Hermione is pushed throughout the series.
Yeah.
There's never any question that they'll get together.
Yeah. They were directed to have like a moment of sexual tension, I think, and then to sort of remember Ron and then think, oh.
And I do like that. I actually really like.
Yeah.
There's a handful of examples I can think of in movies where like a platonic male-female friendship is like reaches a point where it could become something more and doesn't. And I often think that's actually a lot
like this podcast.
Yeah. I often think that's actually a lot more powerful than.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a cool thing. Yeah, and like, you know, it shows this that they've been on the run for so long. They're lonely, or they've got each other, and it's this moment of levity. And yeah, it's a nice moment. It's like, but it's, at the same time, I could see why someone would fucking hate that moment as well.
I mean, it's not like they kiss or anything, and Ron comes back, and it's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Just kind of before we move on, I want to talk about Dobby.
Oh,
according to IMDb
Dobby.
trivia, many Harry Potter fans consider Dobby's death to be the most devastating scene of the franchise. Now,
So that's trivia.
Yeah.
That many fans think something. That's nowhere.
Citation needed, methinks.
Do you know what? I'd actually rate Dobby's death as one of the least devastating in the franchise.
It's one of the funniest moments of the franchise. No, it's not. But it is fun, and it's one of those things that I'm sure was a bigger deal in the book, because I think in Order of the Phoenix, Dobby's a big part of that was cut out. Like, he's the one who suggests the room of requirement. Then there's a few things like that. But Dobby, for movie only people, Dobby just like shows up in 2, is just a little cunt for like 3 hours, and then disappears for 5 movies, and then comes back and dies, and we're supposed to go, oh no, this is the most devastating moment of the franchise.
I actually think you couldn't get a better definition of a non-devastating character death than a gimmick character like Dobby. This reminds me of when
But I can imagine in the book that it's like he, you know, has this triumphant moment where he like overcomes being this gimmick character. And like I get where people are coming from. I do. Like, even when he dies in his big moment where he saves everyone and he dies a free elf and it's all this stuff. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
No, it's because you know how like one of the critiques of The Last Jedi was that Admiral Akbar should have done the Holdo maneuver.
No, that's
and I remember talking to you about it and being like, I'm sorry, but Admiral Akbar is a squid man. Like, he's a joke. He's a joke character. Yeah. It would not have been it wouldn't have been as powerful if it was this gimmick meme character. And that's kind of how I ultimately feel about Dobby, is like, listen, there are plenty more devastating deaths in the series. Some of them have already happened.
That have done off screen.
About 8 of them are about to happen in the next movie. Like, this is, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't that moved by his death or his sacrifice in these.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The Last Jedi thing, man, that's so fun. Like, because also, you know, if it had been J.J. Abrams or, I don't know, any one of these guys that are, like, don't seem to get Star Wars, that are now in charge of Star Wars, or don't seem to understand storytelling, I should say, but that he would have been like, it wasn't a trap, like, and then done it or something like that.
Right.
Like, they would have been like, let's have Admiral Akbar do his big moment.
Yeah. No, I mean, Admiral Akbar's the kind of character you do kill off screen, and Rian Johnson did. And so's Mad Eye Moody, apparently, I guess. Mad Eye Moody's Hedwig's death. Hedwig's death is more devastating than Dobby's death.
I remember my sister was reading because I was just being like, what happens in the book? I'm not going to read it, you know? And she told me, and I think her boyfriend at the time, or they'd split up maybe at this point, but he mentioned that, like, a character whose name starts with H, their death was really sad. And I think he was ahead of her in the book, or she wasn't sure where he was up to in the book. And in the book, at least, it becomes it's very like clear that Harry's going to die at one point. And I remember my mum or my sister like getting to that point and they're having to stop for the night and being like, "Oh my god, like Harry's literally going to die." And my sister was like in tears that the book had been spoiled for her. And I was like, "Well, what did he actually say?" He said, like, "Oh, Harry starts H." And I was like, "You mentioned to me though that Hedwig died." And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Maybe he meant Hedwig." And she messaged him, was like, "Yeah, it meant Hedwig." And it was like, see, look, nothing spoiled.
Your sister, so many stories of your sister have that exact same flavor.
Yeah.
I was trying to say that in a nice way.
Because she might be listening to this, but in what way?
I don't know if I can give any like concrete examples, but like the idea of like letting someone's joke spoiler to take that on as a real spoiler is like, and have it ruin the experience for you because you haven't thought about it, is very funny, I think. But, like, I've had that. I've had like joke spoilers that because you're joking about that spoiler, it means this more serious thing doesn't happen. Like, I can understand that. I can relate to that. And I just wouldn't tell anyone that the character started with H died because I would know they didn't mean Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean these books were serious business when they came out.
That's true. I'm neglecting the fact that these books were more popular than the Bible for teens of our generation.
Yeah, the Bible wasn't very popular for teens of our generation. Yeah. So the story is continued in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which came out a year later. I've already mentioned it has the highest Rotten Tomatoes at 96%. And I think that's just like it's a pretty satisfying conclusion to the Harry Potter saga.
I was thinking that watching it, that like, God, in recent years we have just been like absolutely lambasted with unsatisfying conclusions to things. That one of the best things about watching this one was just like, this is pretty good. Like it's an
amazingly consistent franchise.
yeah, that's the thing. And even when it becomes David Yatesified, it still has the screenplays to back a better movie, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but that's probably credit to J.K. Rowling. But the the fact that like finales are so often unsatisfying. You know, like even the good ones have elements of dissatisfaction with them, but. Yeah, watching Deathly Hallows Part 2, because this is probably the only one I haven't rewatched. I mean, I don't, maybe I hadn't rewatched one either, but yeah, I haven't seen this since it came out in the cinema. And watching it's like, this is actually like, everyone kind of gets their moment to shine. A lot is paid off, and, but yeah, so what's it about?
So they return to Hogwarts because they've got to find, that's like 35 minutes into it's probably well into the movie. They return to Hogwarts. They get the cup first and then go back to Hogwarts
from Gringotts.
Yeah. It's basically, if you've read the book, people, and I know you haven't, Richard, but like the book is like everything happens and then it's the Battle of Hogwarts is like the last like quarter of the book, and the most of this movie is basically the Battle of Hogwarts. So yeah, Voldemort, everyone's back at Hogwarts. Voldemort attacks Hogwarts. Everyone fights. They fight and bite and fight. Fight, bite. The Harry Potter show.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we find the remaining Horcruxes, which we all went over. One thing that I've always really liked about the Horcruxes, that I, even before I had seen the movie, and I just read what they were, and I was like, what the fuck is a diadem? And like, how do these things come into it? But one thing I really like is that in the movie, one of them is kind of ambiguous in a way I'm not sure it is in the book, but that I like that every Horcrux is destroyed by a different person.
Right.
So Harry destroys Tom Riddle's diary in the second film. The ring is destroyed by Dumbledore in the sixth. Ron destroys the locket in the seventh, and then Hermione destroys Helga's cup. Neville beheads Nagini, and Harry, who's kind of a Horcrux apparently, not like officially technically, but he's killed by Voldemort again. and
Mm.
but the Ravenclaw's diadem officially, I think in the book, it's like officially destroyed by Crabbe of Crabbe and Goyle fame. But
True.
in the film, it's like he sets the whole place on fire, and then the diadem comes out. They stab it with the basilisk fang, and then kick it into the fire. So it's like it's unclear which is the one that like killed it, I guess. But and maybe it's clear in the book. But I do like the fact that Harry actually, the only Horcrux Harry destroys, he did 5 years ago.
Yeah. No, that is cool. And I think there's a lot of retconning by this point in the series of things that weren't important. Like, Harry Potter's so bad for some stuff. Like the big one is that the invisible cloak, the cloak of invisibility, is a fucking Deathly Hallow. And it's like, what? This thing that they phrase it in the first film, like it's just like something you can buy.
Oh, you got
from
one
an
of those.
upmarket. Yeah. But I think the best use of retconning is Tom Riddle's diary being a Horcrux, because it also makes sense, because it actually clarifies what the deal is with the diary. Why can Tom Riddle talk to Harry through it? You know, like, it's more because it's a Horcrux. And I really like that Harry is a Horcrux. I think that's a really smart way to complete answer the mystery of what happened that night when James and Lily died, and yeah, like, I think it's a lot more compelling to be like, the main character has to die in order to save the day, and as the prophecy from Order of the Phoenix tells us, only one can live while the other...
do you want to talk about the prophecy, because there's a big fan theory about that, right? Let me pull up what the actual words of the prophecy.
Well, it's less of a fan theory and more it feels like she was writing it to go a certain way, and then before Deathly Hallows came out, someone figured it out, so she was like, okay, I'm gonna change it.
So let me just... the prophecy. Yeah, so it's made by Sybil Trelawney to Albus Dumbledore, foretelling of... So the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to... this repeats. Yeah. And... what are you talking about there, AJ?
So the prophecy basically is led up to for you to think that it's Harry, but all of the categories of the prophecy also technically apply to Neville Longbottom. And for a long time, people were like, the whole story is going to be that Dumbledore has placed this red herring in Harry Potter and placing all this importance in Harry Potter, getting everyone to focus on Harry Potter, because Neville is actually the character who is the chosen one. Neville's the real chosen one. And I loved that theory. I thought there was... I didn't read it till after I read the books, but I thought there was such an interesting idea to literally like the author has done the same thing to you, the reader. Like, the books are called Harry Potter and to then reveal that it was actually Neville Longbottom's story, I think is very destructive. Like, it's very disruptive, I should say. People talk about like disrupting the industry, like it feels like disrupting storytelling expectations, and I really like that idea. And yeah, it's quite commonly thought that she got annoyed that people figured it out. She who must not be named got annoyed that everyone was figuring it out and was like, all right, I'm gonna change it.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory. I like... there's an interesting other world where we, have this. But yeah, I do think
don't
that
like it.
It would probably piss a lot of people off. Maybe I'd be one of them.
That's the best kind of stuff.
Like, I think it's like I don't know enough about it to do it, to really form an opinion on it.
The kind of like the smoking gun is that the Neville's parents getting Cruciatus cursed by Bellatrix Lestrange puts them in the exact same category. And like Neville is canonically also born in July, and I just don't know why you would even include that if that wasn't the plan.
From what I understand, the book floats the idea that it could be Neville,
Maybe, yeah.
And so I think that's probably my issue with it, is that it's like, if the book goes, hey, it could be Neville or Harry, and then it goes, it's Neville, it's like yeah, okay. But I almost think if they'd hidden all information from us,
Yeah, exactly. That'd be the best way to do it. Like, you find out that Neville was born in July in book 2. You hear the prophecy in book 5. You learn all these pieces of information scattered throughout the book so that it's not so obvious. But look, the way it turns out is still pretty good. There's some really cool battles and some really cool lines.
I really like the idea that Harry is a Horcrux himself and has to be Avada Kedavra, and because the only ways we're shown that can destroy a Horcrux is with the Basilisk Fang or Avada Kedavra, but
or the sword.
Yeah, the sword of got a different draw
coated in
Basilisk Venom. Yeah, but Harry's actually stabbed with a Basilisk Fang in Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, is he bitten?
Yeah, but then Fawkes mends it, and then J.K. Rowling has just said, yeah, she fixed it before it could be killed.
Well, I mean, he doesn't die, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
but it's like that part should have killed him. You know, that it should have killed that part. But yeah, it's yeah, no, that's it. And yeah, like I said before, I love that we go back to the Chamber of Secrets. Like, it's a greatest hits kind of finale, but
it works, and greatest hits
satisfying way, yeah.
So rarely work.
But the rules around the Resurrection Stone, I'm confused by, because the Resurrection Stone is it's bequeathed unto Harry in Dumbledore's will. It's inside the golden snitch he caught in his first game. He figures out how to open it when he's ready to die, and the Resurrection Stone comes out. He holds it. He's able to see Lupin. He's able to see his parents. And
so do you know how he opens the snitch?
Yeah.
Because he puts it in his mouth, because he caught it in his mouth.
Yeah.
In his first.
Oh yeah, I didn't think we needed to go into that, but yeah, good. Like, yeah, when he was ready to die is when it will open.
Right.
But he yeah, and then so he sees his parents. He sees Lupin, and he sees Sirius, yeah. And then he...
Imagine if, like, Barty Crouch Sr. was also there. Like, every character who's died adjacent to Harry Potter is, like...
Yeah. But then he drops the Resurrection Stone, and then he gets Avada Kedavra, and then he's just not dead. And it's like... Is it because he held the Resurrection Stone beforehand that it was able to do that, or that gave him the power in the afterlife to get back on the train? It's like a weird thing. I was expecting that someone needed to find the Resurrection Stone by his body and be like, oh, we can bring him back to life. But
no, because the according to the tale of the three brothers, like, coming back from the dead via Resurrection Stone is actually, like, cold and unfulfilling for the resurrectee. Or the resurrected. So I don't think the Resurrection Stone plays into Harry coming back from the dead. I think it's just that, like, there's some kind of spiritual loophole that because he was a Horcrux, he's able to come back. Like, we see him in that afterlife thing where he finds, like, that gross little Voldemort fetus and Dumbledore talks to him. Yeah, like, I don't think that's I don't know. How does Harry come back from the dead? That's actually a really good question.
Yeah, okay, so apparently, according to Screen Rant, it's because at the time, he reveals at the end that because the Elder Wand, which Voldemort has, he goes to Snape and he's like, why isn't it answering to me? And he's like, I don't know. And he says it's because it's transferred to whoever killed its last owner, and because it used to belong to Dumbledore, and Snape killed Dumbledore, then now Snape was the rightful owner of it, so he kills Snape, and then so Voldemort thinks he's now the owner of it.
Fun stuff.
Then Harry reveals that Draco what's the word? Disarmed Dumbledore, the night that Snape killed him, and then Harry disarmed Draco, so now Harry was actually the rightful owner of the Elder Wand, meaning that at the time of Harry's death in the Forbidden Forest, he was actually the owner of all 3 Deathly Hallows.
Oh, damn!
So
that's great.
He was actually the Master of Death at the time and couldn't be killed, essentially.
That's actually really good and should be made way more clear. Because that's so cool. I've never known that to be how it happens. That's way better than he just comes back.
Well, yeah, like, because I just assumed it was like the resurrection stone that he was like he absorbed its power. He got a one up essentially when he grabbed the resurrection stone.
But this is way better because the resurrection stone is a folly. Like, you don't want to come back via resurrection stone. It sounds
You
like.
might not.
Wow, that's true. Or maybe I do.
Hmm.
We've got several deaths in this movie. Several deaths that they really saved some of the heavy hitters for the last book. We've got who dies in this movie? We've got Snape dies.
Oh, Lupin.
Lupin dies. Tonks dies.
Still so bummed about Lupin. Fred Weasley.
Fred Weasley in what is the second worst thing J.K. Rowling has ever done, in my opinion, is kill off Fred Weasley. To me, that's the most devastating death. That's easily more devastating than Dobby, because what's so devastating about it is that it's like characters like Lupin and Sirius Black and even Harry Potter, like, they're operating on this field where it's like death is always just around the corner. Fred is such an innocent character who is like intrinsically tied to his twin brother. I remember finding out Fred Weasley died. My friend told me, because I wasn't reading the books, told me in 2007 that Fred Weasley died, and just being like, Jesus Christ, that's horrific. Like, out of all the deaths in Harry Potter, Dumbledore and Fred Weasley are the only ones I ever remember being like, holy crap, after hearing. So, of course, wasn't going to read the books. I actually remember my dad telling me, I remember in like 2002, my dad telling me that apparently a major character dies in Goblet of Fire. And then I remember him telling me when Order of the Phoenix comes out, being like, oh, guess who dies in Order of the Phoenix? And I was like, oh, who? And he was like, Dumbledore. I was like, oh, man. But God, Fred, like, because George will never be whole again. You know, like, it's so brutal. It's so sad. I can't handle it. It's so upsetting that Fred dies. I don't know if I would have the guts to do it if I was writing these books. Like, I don't know if I could kill off a character as like innocent as Fred.
There's a couple of changes from the books that I'm intrigued by.
Mm-hmm.
So one was. And this was one that I remember when the film came out, everyone talking about what happens with the Elder Wand, everyone was real fucked off about. So at the end of the film, after defeating Lord Voldemort and explaining how he's actually the rightful owner, he snaps the Elder Wand in half and chucks it away. Mm-hmm. And I remember that pissing a lot of people off. I didn't know why necessarily, but it's in the book, just reading on Harry Potter Wiki, so it's like he repairs the wand and keeps it for himself, and knowing that like when he dies a natural death, not being defeated by another wizard, the power of the Elder Wand will disappear, which is what Dumbledore wanted to do when he died. Right. And so that's why it was like buried with him, and he talks to a portrait of Dumbledore who approves of this plan.
Further adding ambiguity and confusion to how exactly these talking, painting versions of characters works.
Yeah, so the other change that's really interesting that Jess pointed out to me as we were watching the film is that she said a lot of people were pissed off about the way about the way Voldemort dies, because when the spell backfires, he fucking disapparates and just like he disintegrates into flakes. It's very Infinity War, and it's this sort of like big dramatic scene, and apparently in the book it's very just like he just fucking keels over and dies because he's mortal again. He's just made into some dude. He doesn't deserve a special death, and I think that's such a better thing that it's like you've spoken about that in The Last Jedi, bringing that up again, that Snoke just dies like a punk bitch. And it's like, Voldemort deserves to just die like a fucking loser and, lose all his powers. He's just some guy. And then, But then it's like, no, it's this big dramatic scene.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think that big dramatic scene isn't actually that big and dramatic. I think it either needed to go how it is in the book, with it just being like you're nothing, you scum, you dirt, or it needed to be like a lot more momentous, because it just kind of like, I don't know, there's no fanfare around it, which is frustrating. So I agree there, and I think it would have been cooler if he'd died like a punk bitch. Did not expect The Last Jedi to come up in, 3 separate comparisons?
Yeah. But yeah, and also the death takes place in the Great Hall in the book as well.
Okay. I do that scene, just before Voldemort is killed, I do think that some of the most powerful stuff in the movie, and the reason why this kind of like the Deathly Hallows duology like brute force themselves into my top 2 or top 3 places, I think, on the ranking, because it's like, how can you not be emotionally moved by some of the stuff that happens in it? And a couple of things I think that are really cool in Deathly Hallows Part 2, starting with close to where Voldemort dies. I love like Neville's speech. Basically, they're like, you can all join me or you can all die, and Neville steps forward and says like, I love the line like, we lost Harry tonight, but he didn't die in vain. And then he turns to Voldemort and he goes, but you will! And it's what a cool fucking thing to tell the most evil wizard in the universe, right? You will die in vain. It's such an insulting thing, and I really love that beat, and I think it's really powerful.
Do you like the hug?
The hug's great. It's intentionally, or it's maybe the best piece of direction David Yates has done. Like, because
apparently it was improvised by Ralph Fiennes.
Oh, there you go.
It wasn't even fucking him.
Well, no, it's just there's because so you're talking about Voldemort hugging Malfoy, and it's this really painfully.
It's the moment when he says, "You can come forward and join us."
Yeah.
Malfoy's the only person that steps forward again, just like Malfoy's a coward through and through.
Yeah. It's very awkward and stilted and like almost comedically so, but I kind of love that dark humor of it, I guess. The worst time in the franchise to crack a joke, and they're cracking a joke. It's great.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where people would watch it and go like, what the fuck? And like, why are they doing that? It's like, no, that's how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah, so often those are the best moments of movies. One really small moment I like is there's that part where, and I don't think it's in the book, where Harry and Voldemort like grab each other and go tumbling off the cliff face, and they like fly about Hogwarts and become one, and it's the poster, the thing I posted on Instagram. Oh no, it isn't. I took several photos of it, then decided to go with Voldemort grinning instead. But before he does it, Harry says like, how about we what is it? It's like, how about
the way we started together?
Yeah, but he calls him Tom, and I thought that's such a good touch.
Oh yeah.
That he calls him Tom.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is calling him Voldemort, but Harry's like, you're like my fucking brother, basically at this point. Like we are so connected. Like, formalities be damned, your name is Tom. I really love that. And
I've solved your anagram, Tom.
Yeah, I know what Iron Lord Voldemort is an anagram for. But the other thing I've always really, really liked in the Deathly Hallows is, I think, Snape's story, the reveal of what's been going on the other time is deeply, deeply satisfying and beautiful and tragic. The fact that like he dies before anyone even finds out he's a good guy, and just like I made fun of it before, but I really do love the idea of Harry growing to regard Snape as the bravest man he ever knew, because what he's basically saying there is like, I knew this guy named Severus Snape who, upon being partially responsible for the love of his life, the unrequited love of his life being murdered, devoted himself to a life of dissatisfaction, to a life of everyone thinking he was this like creepy loser, to the point where he had nothing left but to protect me. And he still did that up until he was killed. That one shot of him hugging Lily's dead body with baby Harry crying in the background, I think is one of the more compelling shots in the series. And I think there has been some like reevaluation on Snape in recent years in a very empathetic Gen Z kind of way of like, is he more bad than he was good? And
Yeah.
and that too as well. But like all of that can also be true, and he can still be a complex, powerful, very like deeply interesting character in retrospect in a way that works, which is very rare for a character to be interesting in retrospect.
That famously as well, J.K. Rowling supposedly told Alan Rickman all of this while filming the first film.
Yeah.
And so he always knew the truth behind it. And then there's an interview with Chris Columbus last year, and he talked about Harry Potter, and he spoke about that. There were times on set where Alan Rickman would make a weird choice, and he'd go, "Why did he do that?" And he now knows, but it wasn't like Chris Columbus wasn't told. Alan has secret direction,
And what a performance Alan Rickman gives across the series.
Yeah.
So many very specific line choices, which I'm sure weren't all motivated by the fact that he was in love with Lily Potter, but
yeah, his dying line of saying, "You have your mother's eyes,"
or always, when even after all this time, always. I've always thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah. That's like the one thing everyone fucking loves. But so going into Deathly Hallows, everyone assumed that Snape's fully evil, right? Is that where we're at?
Do you mean like what the readers were led to believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When I read them, I was pretty sure he was doing a double bluff based on like what I knew of the series already. I hadn't seen the last 3 movies, but I remember thinking at the end of Deathly Hallows of Half-Blood Prince when I was reading them, I remember thinking like, God, he better actually be good, because it's going to be a way better story if he's actually good.
Yeah.
And so I had an idea, but I don't think people knew for sure.
Yeah. But the speaking of like narratively satisfying moments as well, Molly Weasley being the one to kill Bellatrix Lestrange is so good.
After Fred
not my
dying.
daughter, you bitch.
Not my daughter, you bitch is great. No, totally. And yeah,
they're just like such a great character who's never had anything like badass to do.
Yeah.
It's so good,
Yeah. No, that's great. And like I was thinking about it watching it, like they try Avada Kedavraing each other, but they keep blocking each other, and then Molly is just able to do a bunch in a row. And I think like it speaks to like I assume you can't just rapid fire Avada Kedavra, because everyone would just be fucking doing it, presumably, in any battle. And so I think there's like a fueled hatred for this woman who's taken one of her twin sons away, is like allows her to reach that level of like
get rid of the cooldown period.
Yeah, and I think that's if that's me headcanoning it, but it's really good.
Yeah, it's interesting the rules around Avada Kedavra. That it's like, are like Harry, Ron, and Hermione just using it all the time as well? Like when people are trying to kill them, because it's kind of made out like it should be that. Yeah, it's weird. I'm not sure exactly what the rules are around it. It's like, one of the forbidden curses, but it's like, is it forbidden in the same way that like killing people is forbidden in our world?
Whereas in war, it's all good. I mean, by the time everyone's doing it willy nilly, the ministry's fallen and things like that. But it's funny how it's clearly supposed to be like a play on abracadabra, and so like in the world of Harry Potter, presumably whatever like morsels of information from the wizarding world has seeped through into human Muggle legend, like broomsticks and pointy hats and stuff. One of them is like, the worst thing you can do is this fun thing that magicians say when they pull a rabbit out of their hat.
I as far as I understand, that is deliberate, and that's one of the best ideas I think J.K. Rowling's had. That's such a good idea that the thing we go pulling a rabbit out of a hat and say is like a play on the worst thing you can say in their world. I think that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
And like you're making it Avada Kedavra. I mean, Avada Kedavra sounds evil, like with the V in there, the K. Those are evil letters. But the fact that it's a play on the most sort of fun magic thing we have is ingenious.
And presumably Alakazam is Azkaban.
Yeah. There is an element of this movie that we haven't spoken about yet, a very controversial one. And we're going to have to turn our clocks forward. 19 years later?
Oh,
to
right.
the epilogue of the film.
That kind of controversial, not J.K.
No,
Rowling
just this
controversial.
epilogue that like a lot of people think just just sucks. Yeah, what do you think of the epilogue?
I have no beef with the epilogue. I think I certainly don't want the movie or the book to just end where it ends before this. I think it feels like it was J.K. wrote it for her, like to give herself the knowledge. I think it holds up quite well because I don't think like they didn't employ like what would now be dated aging effects to make them look older. They just look kind of like fairly handsome 40-year-olds.
The de-aging on Snape's pretty good also as well in the flashback.
Is he de-aged it?
Well, there's something done, even if it's just like a facelift kind of thing, like a.
I think it's not bad enough to have been given the like ire that it's been given, I guess. What do you think of it?
I don't know. It's just cheesy. I think the dialogue in it and the like, Albus Severus Potter, you're named after
fucking scallywag. I think the best part is
exposition.
Yeah, but the best part is saying, like, clarifying that how Harry feels about Snape in retrospect, that he was one of the bravest men he ever knew. I think that's a very powerful, and it is interesting. Like the last piece of dialogue in the series is devoted to Snape of all characters. I think that's kind of interesting.
We see Draco briefly in the epilogue as well, so just sort of showing that he did get a happy ending, because there is a moment that in this film where it's shown that it's teased the whole time that he's not like fully on Voldemort's side. He was just scared. And he doesn't explicitly do anything courageous or heroic, but we're just sort of shown that he doesn't actually side with.
Yeah. I think in the book, from memory, in the epilogue, it takes time to mention Draco's there as well, and that they nod at each other or something like that. So there's like some kind of harmony has been achieved.
Yeah, he has Scorpius Malfoy as the name
Very
of his son.
cool. Very fucking cool.
Though they are not friends, Malfoy has somewhat decreased his animosity towards Harry, and upon seeing them at King's Cross Station, gives a brief and curt nod to Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny.
There you go.
That's kind of like that. I think that's somewhat of a satisfying ending for the character. That it's like he's not going to be like, it would be dumb if it was like, he has a heel turn at the last minute and became friends with them. Because even after all they went through, he would be, even if he wanted to be friends with them, he'd be fucking ashamed, you'd assume.
Yeah. No, totally. I think what's with all the wizard, like, why is ending in US like such a wizardy name? Ruberus, Remulus, Sirius, Severus, Albus, Scorpius. What's going on there? Can't there be more than one suffix?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, again... I'm Wizard
Jerry Seinfeld right now. What's with all the S's?
Yeah, nice.
Jarius.
Yeah, nice. Good stuff. Anyway, that's all the Harry Potter movies.
Well, I mean, we've still got some stuff.
The last line of dialogue in our discussion about the Harry Potter movies is devoted to Jerry Seinfeld, of all people.
I like it. It's tasteful.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of segments to get through, so is there anything else you want to say about the series as a whole? Anything that we've missed?
No, I think I can shoehorn everything into the segments. Anything else I want to say? Nice.
So yeah, we've got the meeting of the elders, which we're going to do now, and that'll probably, this is where the some of our patrons are able to put their thoughts into the podcast.
Yeah, if you sign up to our Cult Elders tier over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get invited to this little secret Discord channel where we ask you your thoughts. We did this last week for the first 4 movies, and we've got people's thoughts on the second 4 movies. So we can go through those now. So these are the comments from our cult elders. BMD says, continuing my thoughts of the Harry Potter films, allow me to reiterate that JK is a heathen. Okay, we good? Let's move on.
Amen.
Thank you. The fifth is the worst. Way too much is left out. Too many iconic moments flat out removed. Particularly at the Battle of Mysteries, it was butchered, slaughtered, absolutely left in shambles. They left out the giant brains and the magical doors that lead to the very concept of love. What the fuck, man? It's way too short and could have benefited from another half hour at least. I'm glad that BMD is remembering some of the stuff.
That sounds
that
insane to me.
It sounds like a Rick and Morty episode.
The one is it the sixth one that introduces all the love potions as well, and it's like, stop introducing all these things that we just know would lead to sex crimes. Like Polyjuice Potion was bad enough. Jesus.
I genuinely think 6 is the best. It's a good filler episode that focuses largely on character moments and character developments. Lots of little dramas and just a general feel of being an upperclassman in their way out was absolutely nailed. And the Liquid Luck scene was probably the funniest part of the entire series and is genuinely a class act for Radcliffe. I mean, I agree with your comments on Order of the Phoenix, BMD. I think you have an uncommon love for
You have a way with words.
Half-Blood Prince.
Mm.
They go on to say 7.1 is a weird one. I do enjoy how they split up the last book into 2 parts, starting a trend that continues to this day. But I feel like they sort of
it was a trend that very much died and is now back all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like they sort of ran out of stuff with the characters to do in part 1 and sort of ruined the pacing. It's very character-driven, like 6. I don't know if I agree. I think those books are so bad that we're given the first time to breathe since Goblet of Fire. 7.2 is alright. It feels both extremely epic but also sort of too small for its own shoes. As a first go-round for the whole concept of 2-part films, it had some further missteps in terms of pacing. I also thought the final battle with Voldemort was really lacking. It hit the right marks but also feels like its own thing. Overall, I consider the films to be inferior to the books. Too much was left out and it doesn't help that those were some of my favourite parts. Great casting and honestly props to Warner's for pulling off a franchise that kept this group of characters 95% intact for more than a decade. That's insane and incredibly ambitious. Kudos. The latter 4 films, directed by Yates, kind of leave something to be desired. That's a great way to put it. The tone works, but I wish there was more variety. It's like stale bread. That's the best way to describe the Yates Harry Potter movies, is that they leave something to be desired. Even if they're good, they leave something to be desired.
I'd be interested if he had done the whole franchise and it was all looked like this. Did we need to fall in love with the wonder of Chris Columbus and then have that like really competent direction of Cuarón to like ease us into this sort of tone? And yeah, I'd be interested to see how the franchise as a whole would be received. That it's like, because I think it would be more about like, the stories are great, the movies are pretty decent, but you have to read the books. Whereas like I think David Yates's films are, a lot of the heavy lifting of them is done by the previous ones. Yeah,
I wonder if there's almost a frugal businessy kind of, like a budgetary reason maybe that you're planning out these, at the time would have been 7 movies, and you go like, well, for the first 2 we'll get someone who can make magic come alive, and then for the third one we'll like hook people in with like it's somewhat of an outsider but someone who's really competent, and I don't know, make the 4th one as well, and then by this point we can just hire TV directors to do the rest of them, because by that point we've hooked everyone.
Well, it's kind of almost what we saw with like phase 2 of the MCU. Because we got the Russo brothers who were just TV directors at that point, and like Alan Taylor doing Thor: The Dark World.
Okay. When a franchise moves beyond 4 films, you need to start hiring cheaper directors.
Yeah.
Fred's Dead Baby on the Discord, Fred's Dead Baby, which interestingly is relevant to this franchise. Fred's Dead Baby. He says 7 part 1 was always my favourite, but I've been told I'm wrong. I'm telling you, you're not wrong. A lot of people like 7 part 1. Do you want to read the next one for us, Richard?
All right. Scotty Doesn't Know says there's a lot to unpack, so I'm just going to spit out random thoughts about the franchise. The movies, like most films, went downhill after John Williams stopped doing the score. I always hated that Hedwig's death wasn't a bigger deal in the films. They are brilliantly cast, although despite my deep love for all things Gary Oldman, I still don't buy him as Sirius Black. Weird, I know. I get where you're coming from.
I would argue Sirius Black in general is just an overrated character.
Yeah. It's probably a
Remus is the real money melon.
I always feel like they should have explored what's in the lake more. Luna should have had her own spin-off, which is essentially the Great British Bake Off, but with magic. All right, the original pitch. The Order of the Phoenix was the last book I read because fuck, it was long and boring, and everyone is just grumpy and sad in that book. So the movie was somewhat an improvement on the book. That's an interesting perspective. As I hadn't read the books for the last films, it was kind of nice watching them without any spoilers. I always found the choice to have an animated sequence explaining the Deathly Hallows to be kind of a weird creative choice, but I did like the animation style. Yeah, a lot of people... It is like, it stands out in the franchise, but it's just a cool sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I've always pronounced rowling as row, like row a boat, rolling. I'm not sure what the correct version is, but I'm just going to keep using the wrong one until she learns to use the correct pronouns because, fuck her.
Very good. Yeah, Cheese tells us Dumbledore versus Voldemort fight in Book 5 fucking rules. I think the kids' acting improves to a considerable degree. I like how the year at school format is broken because of Voldemort's return, but we end at Hogwarts. Yeah. I fucking hate the epilogue scene so much. Snape's always gets me every time. Those are two separate thoughts. He's not saying that he also hates the Snapes always.
I think that, I somewhat agree with Cheese. It's like, I don't mind that the year at school thing is broken because we end at Hogwarts. Like, if we just visited Hogwarts briefly in the middle, I wouldn't have liked that. But because it's still, Hogwarts is still very important. It's like a character in the films, really. Sure. Vinnie Potter writes to us, I saw years 1 to 4 as a kid, but I feel like my fandom attachment to the franchise happened with the last half. I remember going to school and having kids talk about how excited they were to see the rest of the films after the Deathly Hallows book came out. I did my best to avoid spoilers the years between book publication and movies coming out. I distinctly remember going to see Hallows Part 2. I skipped a day of summer school, which apparently is a real thing, to see it and loved it. But I also felt like a part of my childhood was saying goodbye. I loved seeing the epilogue at the end without prior knowledge. I was comfortable that being my final goodbye to the franchise. Ever since that moment, the franchise had never felt special to me again. Also, fuck J.K. Rowling. That's really interesting that, like, Vinny having this, like, their own farewell to the franchise and their love of it.
Well, and as well, like this is probably the most complex franchise we've ever covered in terms of like people's emotional connection to it. And I think Vinny's really tapping into that there where they say final goodbye. Ever since that moment, that the franchise has never felt special to me again. Like, you don't get this with something like Star Wars, not to the like internal core degree that has happened with Harry Potter. There are people who have like become too angry at Star Wars, but it's never for like
me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's never for like such personal reasons as something like Harry Potter, or they might think it is, but it's not. I can tell.
Yeah. Well, but there's something that like Star Wars MCU have. Well, I mean, kind of the MCU with Endgame, but like they haven't had these like satisfying conclusions where you can go, all right, I'm hopping off this bike now. I mean, for me, Rise of Skywalker was a moment where I can go, all right, I'm done with this franchise, but it wasn't because I was satisfied with it.
Yeah.
Pre from Michigan says, I'm interested in your thoughts on this scene. As far as I can remember, it's the only bit. Oh, the dancing scene.
Yeah, the dancing scene.
As far as I can remember, it's the only bit in Harry Potter with modernish music and it's diegetic. Very cool moment between the characters and makes me wish for a slower and more drawn out post Hogwarts story / conflict.
Sure.
Yeah, we've already skipped back an hour. Also interested to hear you guys discussing Radcliffe being drunk and a functioning alcoholic for the last few movies. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like we sort of talked early on about the Harry Potter actors, the core trio at least, being relatively controversy free enough that they're able to still all have careers and none of them be cancelled, like the creator of the franchise. But yeah, that he sort of hid this thing, much like Jimmy Fallon does these days. But Yeah, it's interesting. From what I understand, he sort of pulled his head in a little bit after realizing how Six sort of got to
Every
him. But
other child actor goes down this path.
yeah, but it is and it's also interesting, just like the idea that with like growing up with Daniel Radcliffe and then seeing him as an alcoholic, when it's like I saw you as a little boy.
Yeah.
Finally, I'm curious how AJ feels, that's you, about
Thank
the
you.
lead male protagonist / hero being a short man, usually in movies / shows. If the lead is short, they do everything they can to hide it or pretend he's tall, i.e. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, Tom Cruise in all his movies aside from Top Gun. It does seem like it's starting to be accepted more, though, with Tom Holland not being portrayed as taller than Zendaya. Relatively a small, potatoes issue in regards to film representation in comparison to gender, race, sexuality representation, but it's an interesting topic nonetheless.
Look, it'd be very fun to make some jokes here about how, we're getting representation, the battle is being won. But listen, mentioning this in comparison to gender, race, and sexuality in this franchise, like, I'm not, yeah, it's great. Like, I think to be serious, not being a short man doesn't affect my life in the same way as like people with actual, things, and being gay or being not white would affect someone, right? But what I will say is I think being short is a subsection of just like the
Body shaming.
Yeah, it's body shaming. So in terms of that, yeah, let's get more. It's not short male leads; it's short male leads who are shorter than their female love interests, I guess, is more the point. And I do like seeing Tom Holland and Zendaya together, because of that, for that reason. But yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's never brought up in the films. It's not. I didn't actually notice until I read this comment, but maybe that's how it should be. Thank you for thinking of me. I like that Pre knows I'm short, like that's been established enough for him to wonder about it.
Pre also says Radcliffe's girlfriend is from Flint, Michigan, so he supports the Lions and will forever be a rock star to me for that. They give a Footnotes version of their comment, and then just also say one more quick note on reread of the books. Dumbledore is clearly gay in the subtext of the Deathly Hallows books, and it confuses me that everyone acts like his homosexuality is a retcon. Also, damn it, Rowling, fucking grow up and sit down and talk to some trans women so you can educate yourself and empathize with others. You clearly have the mental capacity to not be a bigot, so get over your ego and preconceived biases and figure your shit out. Trans women are women, people are people, short men are short. It doesn't say that last part.
It doesn't say that part.
Yeah, this is the thing about J.K. Rowling, is that like she seems to be good in other ways. You know,
I mean, it's the point, I think, of progress is that it shouldn't stop. And J.K. Rowling has decided where she draws the line. And unfortunately, that line for her, she's drawn it a little further back from where most people have. Well, maybe not most people, but most good people.
Yeah, well, because the thing is that, like, her initial tweet that was like, people who menstruate, I think there's a word for that. That could have been one of those things that people just comment like, hey, this comes across transphobic, just so you know. That's why they're using this language. And she'd go, oh, yeah, fuck, you're right. But instead she went, no, well, it's because of the, and it's just the constant doubling down. And like, I think, I mean, she's made her stance very clear, and it seems like there's no coming back from it. But, if it had been that first tweet and then gotten more educated and stuff like that, there's a thing, I mean, I'm for educating people, that people should be able to learn,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think,
but she just keeps digging her heels in, and
well, she wrote that fucking article about, and that's like the point of no return, I guess. Like, you've already done damage to like literally the most vulnerable group of people in the modern world.
Yeah, next to short men. Wait, they look tall in comparison.
I think the Dumbledore is clearly gay subtext. I think that's a really interesting point, and I think that reading it, knowing he's supposed to be gay, it is clear as well. I always thought it was clear, but I would say that's
problem, the thing with the relationship with Grindelwald, which I don't know how much we hear in the book, but it seems pretty gay.
Yeah, And I think the problem is less that people say it's not there. It's more that, like, in the Fantastic Beast movies, you have the opportunity to show it in a sort of an unbridled, full-fledged way, and even that chickens out of doing it.
Well, from what I understand, that it's referenced in Secrets of Dumbledore.
That's presumably the secret.
Yeah. But because people were pissed off about him not wanting to admit his love of Grindelwald in Crimes of Grindelwald, and it's like, well, he doesn't want to admit he loves him because he's Wizard Hitler, not because they can't. Like, I thought that was kind of I mean, we'll get to this more next week.
Let's get to it more next week.
Yeah.
Dan from Hawaii, finally, we've got Dan from Hawaii who says, I don't have haikus for 5 to 8, as I don't have any plans to rewatch them since seeing them all opening weekend. Did rewatch Order of the Phoenix way back when I got the DVD as a gift, and it confirmed my disinterest in the direction the film series was going. I can't stand the dark and dreary and drab colour grading chosen by Yates for his back half of the series, and I also hate that the wands become guns.
I want to talk about that as well, because what do you think about that? Because
I didn't notice it. I think they're just doing a stupefy charm, aren't they?
Yeah. It's interesting that, like, it's almost like you have your wand set to something, and then it's like
stun.
Yeah, like it actually is like that because they're blast. Occasionally they'll do a spell, and it's like, I wonder if they're changing because there's clearly some kind of blast. But I don't know. It makes it, rather than having everyone running around going Flipendo. Fans of the PS1 game will know what I'm talking about. But that rather than having all the fight scenes just be that, I kind of, it speeds things up. It makes it more action packed.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it, but I can see why Dan would.
Dan continues, my distaste also extends to JK's writing. As the series goes on, it becomes very clear that she gets more and more power over the editor in terms of what stays in and what's pushed back upon, and absolutely overstuffed and undercooked back half of the series, in my opinion. That isn't bad, it's just long. I would also like to share one of my favourite theatre experiences, seeing Deathly Hallows Part 1 in a packed audience opening weekend. This was at the height of Call of Duty's popularity, and when Dobby died, the audience was dead quiet, and then a bro said, dude, Dobby got knifed, just loud enough for the audience to hear. Best part of the movie.
Yeah, well, some
most
fans
devastating.
Would think it's the most devastating.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
So we talk about titles a lot on this podcast. You may have noticed over the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a new segment called "We Talk About Titles a Lot" on this podcast.
Our oldest segment. Oh, that's not true, but one of the oldest.
Yeah. So there is a couple of alternate titles. This isn't specific to the last 4 films. These segments now encapsulate the entire franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the first book, called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the UK, was almost in the US called Harry Potter and the School of Magic.
Oh boy.
And Rowling dismissed that. The Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire was also a couple of names tossed around by Rowling for that, were Harry Potter and the Death Eaters, or Harry Potter and the Three Champions, or Harry Potter and the Fire Goblet.
I don't think I was thinking about this because I was thinking an alternate title for Deathly Hallows Part 1 could have been like Harry Potter and the Third Horcrux, but I think it confuses people to put a numerical value in a title when it's not that number in the series. Like, look at something like the Two Towers. We know that's, or the Two Jakes. The sequel to Chinatown.
Yeah. Yeah, do you have any? Because I don't like the title Half-Blood Prince. But do you have any alternate titles for any of these, or any issues with any of the titles?
You had an issue with Order of the Phoenix, because you didn't think it was about that. I think I probably wouldn't change Order of the Phoenix because I think it's
sure whatever. Yeah.
It still represents like an important aspect of the series. But if you were going to change it, and like if these were still like children's books by this point, I think Harry Potter and the Room of Requirement is very cute. That would be maybe what you'd call the second book in the series, or even the first book in the series. I would have called Half-Blood Prince something like Harry Potter and the Death Eater's Task or something like that, because
Harry Potter and Snape kills Dumbledore.
and because it's about like Malfoy being tasked to kill Dumbledore, and so you place the titular emphasis on that mission that is been given by the Death Eaters.
Deathly Hallows Part 1 should have been called Harry Potter on the Run.
Harry Potter on the Run, and then the part 2 should have been Harry Potter back to school.
Yes.
Look, Deathly Hallows should be called Harry Potter and the Elder Wand. The book should be called Harry Potter and the Elder Wand. Like the fact that you've
Harry
got
Potter and the Resurrection Stone. Two of the books are named after stones.
and take out the Deathly Hallows. It's so confusing to like overstuff it. Like we're searching for Horcruxes.
To have two things you have to collect.
Yeah, it's confusing and weird, and like I don't know. Since finding out the reason he comes back is because he's the Master of Death is kind of cool, but I didn't realize that before I came up with this idea.
Harry Potter and the Master of Death. Oof.
I think it's too. I kind of like. It's too obviously trying to be the final one. Harry Potter and the Master of Death. I think.
And it's also kind of a spoiler.
Yeah, true. Harry Potter and the Elder Wand is what it should be called. I think that's a cool title. I think. Although, do you know what? Deathly Hallows is a cool title. But it's just, it's named for something so...
I remember hearing on the radio that that's what it was going to be called.
Yeah.
And being kind of disappointed because I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah.
Continue the franchise. So this is a segment where we pitch our continuations of the franchise and... and also discuss what other continuations there already are. So there's... not long after the eighth movie came out, part 2, that there was Pottermore was released, which is this website which you would go on, you make an account, and you would like join a house, and they would have like house cups and all this stuff. But since 2019, Pottermore was shut down. And it's now wizardingworld.com. It's ostensibly the same thing, but it's no longer Pottermore. But this is where a lot of the sort of added canon came from, and J.K. Rowling's tweets and stuff about wizards pissing and shitting in the floors.
It's literally and that's the thing. It's literally wizards and pissing and shitting on the floor. Like that's not even like an exaggerated joke of the kind of stuff she added.
Yeah. But so there's a lot of like little tidbits of information about the history of everything. But so we're getting Hogwarts Legacy, a game. There's a bunch of video games already based on all the movies, but Hogwarts Legacy is one of the big sort of like you're exploring the expanded world. It's set way in the past. Speaking of things set in the past, you have the Fantastic Beasts series, which we're going to be covering next week. There's currently 3, set to be 5, but we'll get to that more next week.
The Cursed Child?
But as I'm getting to that.
I thought you were forgetting, because you said I don't know, I'm sorry.
Are you done? Are you quite finished?
Oh my god, he's disconnected from the Zoom call, everybody.
In addition to that as well, Warner Brothers is currently reviewing pitches for a TV series set in the Wizarding World for HBO Max. Oh, yeah. So that I presume they'll probably want that as one of their big sort of flagship shows as Amazon moves ahead with like Lord of the Rings. But there is, as you rudely mentioned, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which was a play that's you can buy the script for the play as a book, and it's like the touted as the 8th Harry Potter adventure. The play, when it went on Broadway and the West End, was originally done as 2 plays. Like you had to buy tickets for 2 separate nights.
What a confusing concept that is.
Post-COVID, it's now 1 play.
Right.
So and by the sounds of it, they didn't really cut anything major out. It just moves quicker.
Yeah, right.
It's not like they removed a subplot. They just say things in less lines. A lot of people consider it a bad fan fiction. I believe it's story by J.K. Rowling, but she didn't write the script.
I've heard nothing but bad things about it. Yes.
Apparently, the play is actually good. Reading it is bad. And that's with a lot of things. Like Cats is the classic example. It's like one of the most popular Broadway plays of all time, but it's garbage. But because when you go see a play, the theatricality of it all. You have, that's where you go to play for. But yeah, in 2021, Chris Columbus, who directed the first 2 films of the franchise, has said he would love to direct a Cursed Child adaptation with the original actors returning once they've aged into the roles.
Interesting. What do you reckon?
It would be an interesting experiment. I don't know that I don't think it'll ever happen.
Really? I think it will absolutely happen.
You reckon?
I reckon a Cursed Child movie is a matter of time.
Wow. Well, but I mean, like, if it comes out in 2030, when it's actually been 19 years since the last film, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go see it. I think it would be interesting. But yeah, what's your continued franchise?
I want to see this is my pitch for the HBO set TV series. It's called Night Bus. And it's just let's go back to the night bus. No, I guess like this puts me in a difficult position because I think 3 times on the life of Cult Popture we've pitched the same idea across 3 different projects for a Harry Potter continuation that's basically like a remix of Fantastic Beasts, and so I don't know if I want to do this again now. But for those who haven't seen Ready to Record episode or haven't listened to the Fantastic Beasts,
well, we can
fixing
why
episode,
this more be your pitch for Fantastic Beasts?
Yeah, well, but would that be maybe not? Well, yeah, okay, let's save it then. Night Bus. That's my
Night Bus. So I was thinking about it because it's like I want to do right by the franchise with continue the franchise, because it could be like I just want J.K. Rowling to renounce her views, as my continuation. But it's like, what actual stories am I interested in seeing in this world?
And that's why you've also come up with Night Bus.
Night Bus. So, I just think Fantastic Beasts should be more like Indiana Jones.
Oh, fuck you.
Several years ago, there was a trailer released for a TV series called The Aurors, and it was like this police procedural, and they're like, it starts off just your typical sort of like, this is the person we're looking for, they slam the picture down, and then it like just starts to move before it cuts away, and then you're like, what? And then they're running up across the rooftops kind of thing, and then they both pull out wands, and it's like, oh god, and then it's
The
Aurors,
they're gonna come out of the screen.
And I was like, fuck yeah, that looks cool. And then I looked up the development of it a year or so later and found out that it was actually posted as an April Fool's joke the year before. And I always think like it'd just be cool. Like, that's a cool way to continue the franchise, is just another avenue for us to keep exploring the rules of this world and stuff like that. And it's been like, if you're hunting down, you're in the Muggle world, but you're someone who has to hunt, bad wizards down on the sly, But then I was thinking about, okay, well, yeah, what other stories would I actually genuinely be interested in? And honestly, it's only really like more Lupin, and as David Thewlis needs to come, like, Lupin's just the best character, man. He's so good. And
devastated when he died.
Yeah, he's the sort of the one that I would genuinely want to see more of, and played by David Thewlis.
All right, here's a pitch for continuing the franchise. J.K. Rowling seems to be willing to let go of some ownership, I guess, of this franchise at this point. You've got other people making the game. You've got other people.
I think it's kind of taken from her.
Yeah. So I would like to get J.K. Rowling's permission to write a sequel series, like a novel series to Harry Potter, and it's a modern day Hogwarts set. 7 books in the series, and let's say, give me a name. Make up a name.
Scorpius.
No, give me just a normal name.
Atticus.
All right, it's called. I'm looking for items around my room that could be
Logan.
Okay, it's called Logan Oakwood, and the bloody bloody blah, right? So it's Logan Oakwood and the bloody bloody blah. There's, say, the first 3 come out, and like the wizarding world is back, kids and motherfuckers. It is back. It's we're building upon, we're expanding upon the Wizarding World in all the ways that people have the hole that every Harry Potter piece of media has been trying to fill since the Deathly Hallows is being filled, right? And then book 4, Logan Oakwood starts thinking about things and starts learning about because how old are they now? They're about 15 now, and
14,
starts feeling a little bit like they don't belong. And it's not a Slytherin Gryffindor situation. It's actually because they see like their female friends go into the female lavatories because they don't have to piss and shit on the floor anymore, right? And
he thinks, oh, I should pretend to be a girl to get in there and do harm.
No. So basically, my plan is to lure J.K. Rowling into giving her blessing to a sequel series written by someone else, and then halfway through, the character discovers that they're actually a trans woman and transitions to the point that the final book in the series is called like Lily Oakwood and the blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? So you trick her. You trick her by coaxing her in with money and fame, but with you having creative control, and then by the end you have undone in the perfect world, you've undone some of the damage she herself has caused.
You've solved transphobia.
I haven't solved transphobia, but I've made accessible literature which explains and delicately deals with these issues in a tolerant and uplifting way. And of course, by this point, I'm not writing the series. I've gotten several trans authors to. Turns out it's been ghost written by several trans authors whose names will, by the end of the series, be atop the book cover, right? And I slink away into the background doing my work as an ally. I go down in history as the bravest man they ever knew.
That like at the end, the Lily's child is named after you.
Yeah, named AJ.
The word of God. Yeah, the A stands for ally.
That's the thing. And the J stands for
Jesus.
Jesus. Ally Jesus. And the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah. That's some good thinking there,
Thank
AJ.
you.
Ally Jesus.
Ignore that part.
So it's now time to rank that franchise. Also, I will say on Continue the Franchise that like there's the way people online talk is that it seems almost a given that in 10, 20 years there's going to be another adaptation of these movies or these books that'll be an HBO series or something, a TV series where you're each season is a year.
Yeah.
But which is like it's a cool idea. It'd be cool to see. But
do you know another Continue the Franchise though? Actually, that would be cool to watch for maybe film franchise follow-ups would be that reunion special they just did.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do that next month or this month because we still owe them one for this month.
Yeah. Well, we I haven't seen Lightyear yet. We could do that.
True. Yep. Let's do it. Fuck the Harry Potter reunion.
doing admin on pod. All right, so this is our 100. We're ranked at franchise now, so we've got a ranked list on our Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/popture/list/FFF ranking FFF-ranking, and if you're logged in as us /edit,
don't go there. Anyone can have access to that.
So we're adding Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to the list. Oh, this is 155th entry. I'm just gonna assume this is going higher than
Yeah. So
100.
One thing to consider is it's in a similar way that we've let The Hobbit influence our ranking of. Actually, you know how we should do this? We should rank the Harry Potter series as if Fantastic Beasts hasn't come out yet, and then at the end of the Fantastic Beasts episode, we should re-rank Harry Potter in light of Fantastic Beasts.
Sure. All right, so where does Harry Potter go?
Or do we have The Hobbit ranked now? Are they separate? Why do people make
I think
us
we
change
changed it.
But didn't we
change
it back? No, we changed it back. The Hobbit's there now.
I don't know. We can never please anyone.
Well, the Hobbit's at 92. Let's just rank Harry Potter, and we'll talk about this on the Fantastic Beasts episode.
Okay, where does Harry Potter go?
I think Harry Potter should probably go at number 10, I reckon.
Sweet, that's already where I put it. Save.
So in front of Indiana Jones, which has probably more blemishes, and behind Scream, which is perfect. No notes.
Is this a Gold Star franchise?
What do you think?
I actually kind of think it is.
Well, because critically, there's not a lot of difference between entries, and also it's bolstered by the fact that the weaker entries aren't the last one. Like the last one's the highest score.
Yeah,
which means it gets better. Which is not exactly Gold Star, but
it's like everyone has their favorite and least favorite of these films, but there's no one, like a lot of other ones. It's like, well, what's your least favorite MCU movie? It's like, well, okay, let's not count Thor: The Dark World. There's no one like that in Harry Potter.
A Gold Star franchise, for those who don't know, is our definition of a franchise in which there is no obvious weak link. So it's
universally agreed upon worst one.
Yeah, so it's more a comment on consistency as it is. It's more about consistency than it is like if it's the best franchise in the world.
Yeah, and also I think as well that it can have a universally agreed upon best one, but not a worst one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think this is a Gold Star.
Star it, Gold Star. Probably our longest Gold Star franchise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly, it's an incredible achievement,
and I can't wait to rip that Gold Star away when we cover Fantastic Beasts next week.
Well, if we do that. Yeah, so we are covering Fantastic Beasts in 1 week's time, but that we're sort of raising a bit of an issue we're coming up to, aren't we? What is that?
Well, usually we usually do it earlier than this, but we're approaching a time of year which represents our anniversary, where we, for the last couple of years, have done something we call a redux, where we go back to the early days of the podcast and redo a franchise from days gone by. And the way we've done this in the past is we've let people suggest and vote on what franchise that should be. We were talking this year about maybe switching it to the roulette model that we usually do, and doing it so that it's like we do a roulette of all the franchises from the first 2 years of the podcast and let the fate decide. But we want to take in listeners' opinions on this. So especially if you're a patron, let us know if you think this is a good idea. Maybe it'll be like we have 10 slots and patrons vote for the 10 franchises that go in those slots, and then we randomly generate. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it could be any franchise from any point. They do Harry Potter again. So maybe that's what it should be, is that it's a slightly different way of reduxing a franchise.
Yeah, because last year we did like
Last year I had 37. Sorry.
Last year we did like a bracket, and you chose the winner of each, and like a tournament.
It's too late to do that.
It's too late to do that. So essentially, let us know in the Discord or the comments or wherever or email us, cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, send us a tweet, however you want to get in contact with us, and let us know what if you have any ideas, or what you want to do for the Redux this year. But it will be after Fantastic Beasts. If we need to put some kind of poll up or anything like that, we'll want to do it pretty soon after this episode comes out, so it has enough time to run before we record Fantastic Beasts. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the patrons vote for the top 10 slots, and then we'll do a roulette between them, or we do a roulette for any franchise we've ever covered, like do it from our ranked list, between 1 and 155.
That's a cool idea. And oh my god, Richard, that retroactively puts so much more importance on how we've ranked them that we've never considered before. What a brilliant idea that is, Richard. I want to do it that way.
All right. Well, we'll let everyone know. And then, like, if we want to cheat as well, we'll have to be like, we'll have to just change the ranking. So if people go to local, we'll be like, oh, no.
Yes. Brilliant.
Yeah. They're like, I don't remember you guys like putting Toy Story at 57. No, it was always there.
That's great. Oh, that's such a good idea. Awesome.
All right, so yeah, let us know any thoughts you have, or if you have any other ways you want us to do it. But as always, you can fucking follow us on Instagram, you can follow us on Twitter, you can follow us home.
At
Just
Cult
don't
Pop
call
Show.
me late for dinner.
Yeah, and you can also, as you said before, join the Discord. And lastly, if you want to donate some money, head on over to patreon.com/cultpopture, where you can jump in there and you can suggest and vote on all sorts of things. Make us watch the worst movies you've ever seen. You can do that. That's happened before. Yeah, and another thing that you get from that is our post-credit scene, which is coming up right after this music ends. Look, we've covered the 8 Harry Potter films, but the magical journey is not over. Happy Pride Month. We're still doing J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World coming up with next week.
Well, it won't be Pride Month next week, so.
Oh, good.
So we don't have to,
feel
much
guilty
like
about
many
it.
brands, we can leave the LGBTs in June where they belong.
Yeah, unlike other brands, we actually are going to continue sporting our rainbow variety version of our logo, which you can actually now buy on a t-shirt. Those other brands are exploitative, but you can buy any time of year.
These have been jokes, by the way.
These have been jokes. And these have been the Harry Potter movies. And this has been AJ, and that's been Richard. Stay tuned for the post-credit scene, and we'll see you next week.
Welcome along to the post-credit scene.
This is a segment at the end of each episode, everybody, where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credit scene. Richard,
Bum, bum, bum.
who is it from and what is it?
This comes to us from Ben Close, who writes, is there a video game you would love to see adapted in some form in film? For Ben, it's Outer Wilds. I haven't played Outer Wilds, but I
reckon my days of
probably a good choice
having
for
not
mine,
played Outer Wilds are numbered. I reckon it's going to sneak up on me. Do you have any video
maybe
games?
it'll be part of PS Plus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was going to say Uncharted, but that already has happened.
It's so forgettable, though, that you...
Yeah. I am interested in seeing Tom Holland's Jack and Daxter.
Yeah, the way he described it sounds insane. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've again, Uncharted probably would have been the one I would have...
Last of Us is getting a TV series.
Yeah, exactly. I've typed in video games into Google. I mean, I've always been interested in I mean, I guess there's fucking Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, it's a lot of the obvious ones have been.
Oh,
and,
Half-Life. There you go.
Oh yeah, sure. Portal.
Grand Theft Auto.
Well, I
Tony
think the thing
Hawk's
is that,
Pro Skater.
if there was more good ones, I
Yeah.
think because the assumption, if it's like, oh, adapt my favorite game, the assumption is it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think if we were treated to a lot more good video game movies, this would probably be a lot more fun question. Like, I mean, if Sonic the Hedgehog was the best movie I'd ever seen, I'd be like, fuck yeah, give me Crash Bandicoot next. But it's like, it's fine. I could probably imagine how Crash Bandicoot would turn out,
There's that prototype, that leak of the Crash Bandicoot
series,
animated series that's given me an idea of what that kind of thing would look like, which is...
What about Oddworld?
I don't think I think Oddworld's medium is video games. I mean, sorry, every video game movie ever made.
Yeah.
Like, I seem to vaguely recall they said they were going to switch to film back in like the mid 2000s, and then the company went under for like 10 years. But
they've promised a lot of shit.
They promised so much shit. It is brutal being an Oddworld fan. It reminds me, it's like people who are fans of like sports teams that haven't won since the 1960s, and it's like, oh, it's hard work being a fucking Saints fan, and it's like that. It's like, it's hard work being an Oddworld fan where the games were at their best 20 years ago and will probably never be that good again, and all the best ideas remain on the Wikipedia page for unmade projects and will never move beyond there.
Saints Row You just gave me an answer
there you
there.
go.
Yeah.
FIFA.
Saints Row.
FIFA is my answer.
Saints Row feels like a matter of time as well.
Do you think we'll get a Saints Row movie before a Grand Theft Auto movie?
Well, I mean, Grand Theft Auto is just, what? Saints Row has a gimmick,
Yeah.
Especially if you're adapting, like, the fourth one, where it's like, the world is invaded by aliens and you're the president. And then you get superpowers.
Okay, I'm finding out how truly unfamiliar I am with the Saints Row series right now.
Yeah, I mean, it started off as just like edgy GTA, and then by the fourth one, it's like by the fourth one, like the first upgrade you get pretty much allows you to run faster than any car. So it's like it's never advantageous to drive anywhere.
Right.